Mighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Oath of affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, I have received communication from Mrs. Anita Hinds-Aline, MP, member for Tabaquite, who has requested leave of absence for the period November 18th to December 10th, 2024, and from Dr. Rai Ragbir, MP, member for Komuto Manzanilla, who has requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the members seek is granted.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions.
Member for Naparima.
Given that this House was advised on April 26, 2024, that the Attorney General is preparing the government's response to the report of the Commission of Inquiry on the attempted 1990 coup, will the Prime Minister provide an update on the status of said response?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this matter is receiving the attention of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is seeking legal advice with respect to the report and will, in the normal scheme of things, advise the Cabinet once this exercise has been completed.
Member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 2. Will the Prime Minister indicate whether a final report of an audit of personal equipment and processes at the Strategic Services Agency has been completed and submitted to the government by Acting Head of the SSA, Brigadier General Anthony Phillips Spencer?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the answer is no. However, at many stages along the way, the government has received interim reports on different aspects of that operation, and one of the documents that the government would have received is a new arising out of the work that is being done and the various reports that we've had is a new organizational chart, which is currently before the National Security Council for consideration. But the work continues, and we expect that, to put it as the member has put it, a final report would be available sometime in the not too distant future.
Member for Urupuch.
Thank you very much. To the Honourable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, since this matter originated in or around the beginning of March 2024, is there any particular reason, or are there reasons why at this time, by mid-November 2024, the government cannot have in its possession a final report on this matter, as opposed to several interim reports that are interim yet determine policy?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, it should be obvious to anyone that if there's an ongoing arrangement in an investigation where new information and new situations are developing, you can't have a final report while the matter you're investigating is in fact continuing to unfold. And that's where we are, Madam Speaker. We will not try to have a final report by a particular date if in fact we do not have the complete picture of the situation and we are in fact continuing to investigate the matter.
Member for Urupuch.
Prime Minister indicate whether the Prime Minister believes it is prudent, therefore, to undertake fundamental change in policy and personnel without the benefit of a final report, as the Prime Minister admitted, where matters are still unfolding. Yet, the government is making fundamental change without a final report. Is this prudent?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the member is giving himself information and authorities for which he has no basis. It is quite possible, as it has been done, to review an organization and come up with an organizational chart which is an improvement on the existing one. And if you have had certain information where there were certain shortcomings and failings from your interim report, you use that, Madam Speaker, to guide you towards dealing with a new organizational chart. It is ongoing work, and that's precisely what I've just said. The work is ongoing. So I don't know why the member is taking the position that we are doing policy without the information. That is just not so at all, Madam Speaker.
Does the Minister indicate whether or not there's any date for the completion of a full and comprehensive report on this sordid matter?
Member, I believe that question was answered. Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, given the recent signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the government and the United States Drug Enforcement Administration to establish a vetted unit for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, will the Prime Minister inform this House on the proposed composition of the said unit and whether stakeholder consultations have taken place?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the proposed composition of the vetted unit would include members of law enforcement entities from Trinidad and Tobago with the lawful authority to investigate major transnational organized crime. They would be supported by the United States Drug Enforcement Agency during their investigations. Extensive stakeholder consultations were held over the past year from initiation of this proposal, Madam Speaker.
Vancouver South.
Prime Minister, could you inform this House, based on the fact that you've said the composition will involve law enforcement agencies, officers from law enforcement agencies, what will be the reporting relationship of these officers from the respective law enforcement agencies?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, reporting relationships remain the same. The vetted unit would be under the control of the Commissioner of Police, and reporting arrangements remain the same.
Member for Vancouver South.
Prime Minister, are you in a position to inform this House of the compensation packages of the officers who will be in this particular unit, and will it be different from the officers within the Police Service of Trinidad and Tobago?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I would not venture to interfere with the compensation package of officers, whether they come from the Coast Guard, the Defence Force, or the police, as they do their work under the existing arrangements.
Member for Vancouver South.
And in keeping with the commitment of consultation, Prime Minister, could you inform this House if discussions didn't take place with the executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Welfare Association?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I have indicated that appropriate stakeholder consultations have taken place.
Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, given that the Minister of Finance celebrated a court order in relation to the arrest of the tugboat Solo Creed in Angola, will the Prime Minister inform this House whether the government has been able to ascertain the owners and or persons associated with this vessel?
Madam Speaker, I think the Minister of Finance, in his exuberance, was trying to encourage his colleagues that at some times there is something that we can celebrate about Trinidad and Tobago. So, Madam Speaker, the government continues to seek the identification of the owner or owners of the Solo Creed. Unfortunately, to date, the true owner or owners of this vessel have not been located. The government continues to seek the assistance of various governments and international bodies in ascertaining this information. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the vessel and those associated with it were operating illegally and took many steps to hide their identities, including, it appears, the falsifying of relevant documents. The Minister of Energy 2 weeks ago discussed various options with the International Oil Pollution Compensation IOPC funds in London for further assistance in identifying those who are responsible for the oil spill in Tobago. But, Madam Speaker, let it be known as a fact that the people who were involved set about to hide their identity and acted illegally. So it is not an easy trace, but the government is on the job, and if they are to be found, we will find them. And, Madam Speaker, this is something that goes on all the time in international maritime trade, but at least we have the vessel and we know what happened with respect to the situation. And the IOPC is working with us to finalize the compensation.
Madam Speaker, taking into consideration what the Prime Minister has just divulged to this House, could the Prime Minister inform this House what is the benefit to the people of Trinidad and Tobago in relation to having this vessel arrested in Angola?
Madam Speaker, if we are to make a successful claim at the IOPC, we have to show that we have taken all reasonable steps to identify the perpetrators of this illegal action against us. So to say that the action that we've taken is useless is to not understand what we're doing at all. Madam Speaker, we have done what is required to be done, which is to find out who was responsible for the cargo and who was responsible to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I don't know what the problem is. It seems as if having identified the vessel is offensive to our colleagues on the other side. At one time, we didn't know the vessel. We didn't know what vessel was involved. We went halfway around the world in our investigation, and we have found that. So instead of congratulating those who made the effort, we are now being assailed in a way that I myself have difficulty to understand, except that I know that my colleagues on the other side, most of them, have a difficulty associating themselves with any success of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Kuba South.
Madam Speaker, is the Prime Minister in a position to inform this House of the cost to the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago in relation to the arrest of this vessel?
Member, having regard to the question and also the responses, this is out of order in accordance with the standing orders. Member for Kuba South.
I'm still allowed a supplemental on this particular issue.
I think you only asked two.
Yeah. Prime Minister, given the information that is at your disposal and the government, could you advise this House if the vessel was insured?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I do not have that information.
Member for Kuba South.
Prime Minister, could you inform this House if you are aware that the vessel was, or if it is not insured, are you aware that this could have implications as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago's claim, which is currently before the International Oil Pollution Compensation Fund?
But Member, surely I rule that question out of order, having regard to the response and the question that preceded, which leads to this. Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, Honourable Prime Minister, given the query by British Law Lord Lady Simler, will the Prime Minister advise whether the Minister of Finance will be investigated for his role in the failure to provide relevant access to the documentation, preventing the Auditor General from conducting the required audit of the national accounts of Trinidad and Tobago?
I am not aware of any query by any British or other law lord, and I am not aware of any role of the Minister of Finance in failing to provide information to the Auditor General.
Member for Couva North.
To the Honourable Prime Minister, given the ongoing foreign exchange shortage in Trinidad and Tobago, which has been affecting micro, small and medium-sized businesses, will the Prime Minister indicate what urgent measures the government plans to implement to address the severe restrictions on access to foreign currency?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm aware that the member is being affected by the situation, but I'm not sure that one is allowed to use the House to advance your own business. The amount of foreign exchange available in the banking system, Madam Speaker, in 2023 to 2024 is about the same available in 2014. That is approximately $7 billion US. So there has been no reduction in the marketplace of the government's support for foreign exchange. Of this total, the government directly injects $2.5 billion per year. That's the system that we operate, with the remaining $4.5 billion acquired by the banks directly from the United States dollar earning clients. However, in 2024, there is clearly an increased demand for foreign exchange due to the growth in the economy and an increase over the years in the taste for foreign goods and for the use of online purchasing. The Minister of Finance is currently meeting with stakeholders to determine the reasons for the increase in demand with a view to arriving at a consensus on the management way forward, which may involve more regulation of the method and manner of distribution by the banks of the government's foreign exchange that is injected into the commercial banking system by the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago on a monthly basis. The Minister of Finance has already met with the 4 largest commercial banks to discuss this matter and will be meeting with business organizations over the next month. Madam Speaker, as I answer this question, I simply want to add that there's a misalignment between the appetite to spend foreign exchange and the ability to earn foreign exchange. We do not create foreign exchange in this country except by earning it, and we can generate an infinite appetite to spend it, and that's where the management system comes in. The government has certain arrangements in place to ensure that certain basics are funded, like medicine, food, manufacturing support, and so on. That's the government's role in managing it. And Madam Speaker, we have noticed a deliberate attempt in recent times to put pressure on the government to devalue the currency. Let me save them from wasting their time today. There will be no devaluation of the currency. Because, Madam Speaker, the pressure on the government to devalue the currency is coming from people who have foreign exchange largely, using their attempt in the country to make this an issue, ignoring the fact that any devaluation could only result in increased costs across the board, Madam Speaker. Of course, it will make those with foreign exchange wealthier because they will get more Trinidad and Tobago dollars. So to try to pressure the government to devalue the currency, we must be the only country in the world where people are demanding to devalue the currency and decrease their wealth from those who have to pay it. This is special interest pressure, and the government will not bow to it.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you most kindly, Madam Speaker. Taking into consideration the Prime Minister's inability to provide any plans to address
No.
the severe restriction on access to foreign currency.
Member, 1 minute, please. Remember, this is not statements. Okay, please ask the question.
Thank you most kindly, Madam Speaker. Yeah, and following up from the response given by the Honourable Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister provide some sort of timelines that the government can give to members of the business community so that they can expect some kind of improved access to foreign currency?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I said that the Minister of Finance has met with, is meeting with the relevant people in the country whose job it is to manage and to advise on this matter. That is ongoing, and the member's business is not a foreign exchange owner, and therefore he's not to come in this house and try to pressure us on that.
Member for Outreach West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Prime Minister, give me your response to both questions raised by my colleague. You indicated the Minister of Finance was engaged in meeting with stakeholders. However, in 2020, is the Prime Minister
1 minute,
aware?
please. Yes.
Is the Prime Minister aware that this is the very same statement made by the Minister of Finance in 2023 during his budget response, in which his budget presentation, in which he said that he was in fact engaged at that time in 2023 in meeting with the very same stakeholders?
Prime Minister.
If the member for Outreach West has a problem with the Minister of Finance speaking the truth and stating the facts, I'm afraid I can't accompany him down that road.
Member for Outreach West.
Madam Speaker. Honourable Prime Minister, given that there is no response and 1 year has passed since the Minister initiated these conversations, is there any expectation, should the public have any expectation that there would be some level of timeline within which the Minister of Finance and the Honourable Prime Minister and his government will be able to give some level of assurance to members of the public and businesses who are suffering during this foreign exchange crisis?
Mr. Speaker, the country's position is located in what I started by saying. There is a certain amount of foreign exchange in our economy relating to the size and growth of our economy. The government supports the exchange rate by injecting $2.5 billion, and we will manage the situation between appetite to spend and ability to earn. That is the role of the government. If we are being invited to give a date and a time when everybody could get all the foreign exchange that they want to use, Madam Speaker, I'm afraid I can't do that. It is one of the shortcomings of being a small economy where you have to earn foreign exchange, service your debts, buy your basics, and of course not run down your reserves to end up in a worse situation. So it's a management situation, Madam Speaker, and the government is fully engaged and is managing it to the best of the country's interests.
Urgent questions.
Member for Couva North. South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Works and Transport, given the rainfall yellow level warnings from the Meteorological Office and consequential continuous flooding on the Southern Main Road from Isaac Junction to Savanetta Junction, Couva, which has negatively impacted business operations in the said area, will the Minister inform this House of the measures being pursued to alleviate this problem?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, periodically, the Ministry undertakes both manual cleaning and mechanical cleaning of the drains along the Southern Main Road. Due to the commercial development, the roadside drains are largely covered box drains. A phase of contracted work was completed from Isaac Junction to the Couva Business District. This work is earmarked to be continued in the current financial year, pending the availability of funding. It is to be noted that the area is being assessed since drainage upgrade work may be required in addition to routine cleaning due to the increased development in the area, which has increased the volume of surface runoff. This would be part of a long-term development work. Thank you.
Member for Couva South.
Comments. Are you aware on the 23rd of January 2023, in this very house, you stated that other critical areas in need of desilting within the proximity of Couva, California, and Savanetta are scheduled for desilting in the second quarter of 2023, and nothing has happened? When will the Mamagai end?
But, no. So, member for Couva South, I'd ask you to withdraw that second part. You've asked two questions. Okay, you asked, are you aware or something? And then, so I'd ask you to withdraw the part when the latter question and pose. The first question is what I'd ask the Minister to answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw, but I will restate to the Minister.
Well, you already have a question on the floor, so you withdraw. So, Minister, answer the question that's on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Minister is really true to form. Madam Speaker, I did say, sorry, member, Madam Speaker, I did indicate that work was done as promised and the work will continue based on the availability of funding. I just want to remind the member that we are in the peak of the rainy season, and flooding in low-lying areas, like the area mentioned, would have been expected, and it was stated by the meteorological advisory that low-lying areas will experience flash flooding during the yellow level alert. Thank you.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, could you confirm if you have had requests from the Couva Point Lisa's Chamber of Commerce to address this very critical issue of flooding, which continues to impact on all of the members' business within the said jurisdiction?
Madam Speaker, at the Ministry of Works and Transport, we receive requests from several chambers, several MPs, several NGO groups for work to be done. The ministry will attend to basically all the requests we get based on the availability of funding. Thank you.
Member for Barataria-Stano.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Works and Transport, having regard to yesterday's extensive flooding in El Socorro and Barataria, will the Minister indicate what immediate steps are being taken to mitigate the flooding?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Drainage Division completed annual maintenance work in addition to clearing Drain 5 and 10 in the El Socorro area. Additionally, regular maintenance work continue on the Malik River, but there is also a scheduled project which has been awarded to clean the downstream of the Malik River to the outfall of the Caroni River. It is noteworthy that the pumps located in Sadu Trace is functional to pump when needed. These measures is in place and will continue to mitigate flooding in El Socorro district. Thank you.
Member for Barataria-Stano.
Thank you. Minister, are you aware that after these extensive rehabilitation work that you indicated were completed, that the area floods even more?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, I don't know if I should advise the member that, again, that we are in the rainy season. We are being challenged with something called climate change, where you have a significant amount of rainfall being accumulated on a very short space of time. So with every step that we are taking, there will be challenges at this time. However, I did indicate that we have just awarded a contract to clean the downstream of the Malik River into the Caroni River. What this will do, it will allow a faster runoff in the Malik River, which will, again, help to alleviate the flooding in the El Socorro-Samo Barataria area. Thank you.
Member for Barataria-Stano.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can the Minister indicate whether or not an assessment was done where Courts is situated on the highway where most of the water floods there and is unable to run under the highway to get to the El Socorro South area into the Caroni River?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, studies are done around the country. That is why we engage the Andean Development Bank. And we do have a program. However, the member for Barretta should understand that the Barretaria area is virtually an area where most of the water from the hills and so come down to enter the Malik River, which takes the water out to the Caroni River, which takes the water onto the ocean. Once the Caroni River is filled, you will get challenges from all the tributaries. But I think I'll have to familiarize the member with that area. Thank you.
Then on notice, questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 4 questions on notice. We will be answering 2. We are asking for deferral of question 14 and question 22.
Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 17 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Camden Road is under the purview of the Couva-Tabaki-Talpa Regional Corporation. However, notwithstanding this fact, a section of the road was paved by the Pure Unit prior to the last local government election. Currently, no work for this segment of the Camden Road from Sevilla Junction to Captain Watson Light are scheduled under the current program of works of the Pure Unit. However, as usual, the Ministry is willing to provide the corporation with any technical assistance that may be required. The Pure Unit is in the process of putting together a new program of work based on request. Once funding is available, the Ministry will collaborate with the regional corporation to facilitate work in areas such as this. Thank you.
Member for Vancouver South.
Speaker, taking into consideration that the entire cabinet used that roadway to attend the opening of the Nutramix hatchery, and that roadway is an important roadway as it relates to the port of Point Lisas, the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate, and so on. Could the minister give a commitment that the necessary financial allocation and technical support will be found to rehabilitate the other portion of the road?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, I did indicate that based on the availability of funding, all roads in Trinidad and Tobago will be addressed, but all can't be done at the same time. It will be done on a phased basis. We did part of the road already, and my hope is to continue once the funding is available. Thank you.
Member for Miaro.
Number 21 to the Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, I'd like to bring to the attention of the member from Mayaro that there is no HDC development named El Guanapo. I'm sorry that he does not know his constituency. The housing development that exists is the El Guayanapo housing development, and it is on a parcel of land which has been constructed on 8.67 hectares, 122 residential units. The land falls under the old common law system governed by the Conveyancing and Law of Property Act, Chapter 5601, and is vested in the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation. Homeowners in this development who have completed payment for their properties are thus able to obtain titles or deeds to their properties. Of the 122 residential units, 57 homeowners have applied for and received their deeds. With respect to the Mora Heights development, the HDC expects, barring unforeseen circumstances, that homeowners can obtain title documents to their properties and have boundary demarcations carried out for the individual lots within the next 12 months. This is because some issues still need to be resolved with the Town and Country Planning Division to obtain final planning approval, but these issues are being actively addressed. Regarding the conveyance of title, the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation Facilities Estate Management Company Limited, FEMCOL, one of the subsidiaries of the HDC, is engaging residents in outreach and community visits. Regarding site maintenance, Madam Speaker, the HDC has and will continue to undertake work on infrastructure and drain maintenance until this responsibility is transferred to the regional corporation's remit. In 2024, the HDC launched its Rent Cafe app, which allows customers to have real-time access to the HDC, which includes making online payments and maintenance requests. The HDC uses this app also to post notices and to distribute information on what is taking place in the area. For persons in mortgaged units, the HDC has created an online form for homeowners to make maintenance requests. Persons can track the status of these issues online. The corporation cannot address requests for boundary demarcations at the Mora Heights housing development until the HDC obtains the duplicate general and portion plans for the development approved by the Director of Surveys. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, question 14 and question 22 have been deferred for 2 weeks.
Public Business, Government Business Bills, second reading.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Make Provision of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the bill before the House is very straightforward. It is not something that we have not done before. Just by way of record and for the information of honourable members and the wider public, I want to give some details of previous amnesties. The first amnesty that I am looking at, because I've taken the period 2009 to present, the original period for that tax amnesty was from September the 8th, 2010 to June 30th, 2011. That was then extended for 1 month. The amount collected as of June 2010 was $1.6 billion. The second amnesty, July the 1st, 2016 to August 31st, 2016, there was within that period an extension of 1 month, and the total collected in 2016, $766 million. In 2019 we had the most successful amnesty within the review period from June 2019 to September 2019, and there was a 2-week extension within that period from September 15, 2019 to September 30th, 2019. The amount collected in 2019 from a tax amnesty was $2.38 billion. And the BIR was quite successful during that year in getting payments from large taxpayers, companies in the energy sector, and so on. The fourth amnesty was in 2021, from January 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2021. And in that amnesty, we collected $1.1 billion. The fifth tax amnesty I would like to look at was in 2022, spanning over into 2023. And In that amnesty, from November 22 to February 2023, we collected $1.59 billion. There also was a NIS amnesty in the period 2023 to 2024, and we collected $82 million. Well, not we, the National Insurance Board collected $82 million during that National Insurance amnesty. So I thought it was necessary to just give some history. Now, before you is the Finance Bill 2024, and it's designed to address the tax and national insurance amnesties that are announced in the recent budget statement. At that time, in September, I announced that the amnesties were to take effect from October the 1st, 2024. And although that date has already passed, I want to make it abundantly clear that the legislation before you is effective from October 1st, 2024, and consistent with the announcement. The reason being, it provides a benefit. You can do retrospective or retroactive legislation if you are providing a benefit. If, however, you're taking something away from someone, that is when you get into the realm of a special majority. But once it is a benefit, as this is, we can do retrospective legislation. So the amnesty is effective from October 1st, 2024. I also want to announce that we will have a second finance bill in this year, 2024, next month, and that will deal with the other fiscal measures that were announced in the budget. But I thought it appropriate to get this amnesty matter out of the way. Reason being that under the Income Tax Act, the Cabinet is permitted to waive, the actual word used is remit, taxes and duties. So the Cabinet has an authority under the Income Tax Act to remit or waive taxes, but the Cabinet has no authority to waive penalties. And I'm not sure that any Cabinet should have that authority. I think it should always be done by legislation, by legislative amendment. This is the view at this point in time. So that every time we have an amnesty, there is introduction of a bill, and there is specific special purpose legislation dealing with the waiver of penalties and interest that are due on unpaid taxes. I also want to make it clear that the amnesty does not in any way create a situation where the tax liability is waived. So the taxes are still owed, but what is being waived is the penalties and interest on overdue taxes. As in all previous tax amnesties, if the individual or the corporation fails to take advantage of the amnesty period, fails to make the tax payments that are due, owed and payable, the associated interest and penalties are restored upon expiry of the amnesty period. Now, the underlying rationale of imposing interest and penalties is to encourage taxpayers to pay their taxes on time. But there will be cases where taxpayers do not intentionally set out to avoid paying taxes on time. The most recent example of this was the problems that were created during the COVID-19 pandemic. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, many companies, I dare say almost all, were without income and found it very, very difficult to meet their statutory obligations, not just in terms of paying their taxes, but also in paying their national insurance contributions and so on. So COVID had a devastating impact on many businesses and individuals. It created cash flow problems for them. And even though by and large, most sectors have rebounded to pre-COVID levels of revenue, there are still some sectors that require assistance, in particular small and medium enterprises. And this is why at this time, we have a small and medium enterprise stimulus loan program where the government is guaranteeing 80% of loans to these particular small and medium enterprises, ensuring an attractive interest rate, providing a moratorium of 2 years before payments begin. And that small and medium enterprise stimulus loan program is going very well, based on the reports, the regular reports that we get. So this amnesty is intended to assist taxpayers that have fallen into an unfortunate situation. As I said, primarily because of the continuing effects, the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, amnesties have also proven to be a very valuable source of revenue to various governments. As I indicated, I read it out for you. Just let me read it out again. In 2011, the amnesty yielded 1.6 billion. 2016, 766 million. 2019, 2.3 billion. 2021, 1.1 billion, and so on. During the last tax amnesty, a total, as I indicated, of 1.59 billion was collected, but it was collected from 18,873 taxpayers who took advantage of the amnesty period. We expect this particular tax amnesty to be accessed by approximately 20,000 taxpayers, and we expect to collect approximately $1.5 billion from this particular amnesty. So amnesties, while they should not be encouraged, have been mutually beneficial to both taxpayers and to the state. You would also be aware, Madam Speaker, that based on the successful outcome of the challenge to the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, that we are moving full speed ahead to operationalize that revenue authority. And therefore, it is not this government's intention to make amnesties a permanent fixture in the national budget, because we know what that can cause. It can create expectation and a dependency that taxpayers will just be complacent and wait for the next amnesty. Now, let me say a few things about property tax. There has been some inconvenience caused to persons with respect to the payment of property tax. There were long lines at both the district revenue offices and the headquarters of the Inland Revenue Division associated with the payment of property tax, because when it began, we did not have the facilities for online payments in place. Reason being that property tax is revenue, and unlike other online payments, such as your online payment for your electricity bill or your water bill, the commercial banks are not authorized to deduct anything from an online payment of tax. So that, whereas when you pay your electricity bill and so on, the commercial bank will charge TNTech a small percentage or a flat fee for each transaction, and that is deducted from the overall total, because when the person is paying, they pay the actual amount. When you pay your electricity bill for online, for example, let's say your bill is $1,000, you pay $1,000. You don't pay $1,020 or $1,025. So the service charge for that transaction is deducted from the amount, and the balance is remitted to TNTech or WASA, as the case may be, or TSTT or Digicel and so on. So in the case of tax, you can't do that. It's unlawful to deduct anything from the revenue from the payment of tax. So what we have decided to do as a government, it took quite a while to make the arrangements. The government is going to pay the service charge for the first 6 months in terms of property tax. Thereafter, there may be an arrangement where taxpayers may be asked to pay the service charge, but we are paying the service charge at this point in time. We also had to ensure that the taxes were brought to account and properly recorded at the Treasury and at the Board of Inland Revenue. So you would be aware by now that taxpayers now have the ability to make payments online with First Citizens Bank and with Republic Bank from their homes. We have also extended links payment facilities in all district revenue offices for the payment of taxes. Previously, links payment or the debit card arrangement was only available in certain revenue offices, the head offices in particular. Now, let me move to the bill itself, because this is a very, very straightforward bill, and this particular bill follows the pattern of all previous bills in terms of the waiver of penalties and interest. Just one second. Well, let me deal with it under particular headings. If we go to Clause 7 of the bill, Madam Speaker, Clause 7 of the bill deals with property tax. And it may become a little confusing as to what the legal effect of the various sections relating to property tax mean and the amnesty. The government has extended the deadline for the payment of property tax on several occasions. The latest extension is to the 20th of December. However, persons who have not paid their property tax by the 20th of December would still have an opportunity up to the 31st of December to pay their property tax without the imposition of penalties and interest. So that what we've been doing with respect to extension of time to pay property tax runs in parallel with this particular amnesty. This amnesty extends to all forms of taxes, to income taxes, corporation tax, stamp duty, etc., value-added tax, and so on. So that even though there is an extension to the 20th of December for taxpayers to pay their property tax without the imposition of penalties and interest, in effect, it is now December 31st is the deadline for the payment of property tax without the imposition of penalties and interest. Speaking now to national insurance. Again, this is influenced by the recovery from COVID-19. Companies not only fell behind in terms of payment of their taxes, but they also fell behind in terms of payment of their national insurance. And the National Insurance Board, as I'm sure some people know, is quite aggressive in terms of trying to recover national insurance payments, and quite aggressive in terms of trying to recover penalties and interest even from state entities. During the last national insurance amnesty in 2022, and that went on to 2023, a total of 4,739 employers took advantage of that amnesty to deal with their arrears of payments to the National Insurance Board. That is in 2022, and the NIB benefited from the receipt of 124 million. In the most recent national insurance amnesty, approximately 552 employers remitted around $82 million in arrears to the National Insurance Board. With respect to the registration of clubs, the government intends in the very near future to fully proclaim the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Act. In fact, the deadline we have set for ourselves is the 31st of December, 2024. This will eventually repeal the gaming tax currently payable under the Registration of Clubs Act and introduce another system of collection of revenue from the gambling sector. This amnesty, therefore, presents a much-needed last opportunity for those operating under the Registration of Clubs Act to regularize their situation, pay their taxes on all of their various gambling devices before transitioning into the provisions of the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Act. Because after that, there will be no opportunity to address a waiver of penalties and interest on taxes payable for gaming devices under the Registration of Clubs Act, and those who have not paid will find themselves facing accumulated penalties and interest going forward. So I would like to take this opportunity to let all of the gambling clubs know outside there, this is the last chance they will get to pay up their taxes under the Registration of Clubs Act. That particular entity, because of COVID-19, because of the restrictions for public gathering and so on, was deeply affected. We gave relief to the gambling sector through the reduction or refund of 42% of the gaming taxes payable for the year ending December 2020. It was one of the industries that was most severely affected by COVID because they were closed and they simply could not generate any revenue, but they had to pay the taxes. So we reduced taxes for gaming establishments by 42% for the year of income ending December 2020, but people still didn't pay. So I still want to point out that this is the last chance for persons operating clubs where gambling takes place to pay their taxes. With respect to the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control legislation itself, just as an aside, the Commission invited public comments from members of the public on the various licensing regulations, the amusement machine control regulations, betting regulations, electronic betting regulations, and so on. In October, the Commission also had dialogue with stakeholders in the gaming and betting sector on the regulations to get further input. And therefore, this is why we have established December 31st as our deadline for the proclamation of the Gambling and Gaming Act. With respect to public procurement, another important issue that is driving these particular amnesties is the legal requirement under Section 29(1)(d) of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. Under that section of the Public Procurement Act, public bodies are required to ensure that suppliers and contractors have fulfilled their obligations to pay all required taxes and contributions in Trinidad and Tobago. And this has created a lot of problems for small businesses in particular. Many small businesses are behind in terms of payment of their taxes and their NIS contributions. And it is now a requirement of law that you get a tax clearance and you get a national insurance clearance before you are allowed to tender for the provision of public goods and services to a public authority. So again, to those particular entities who may wish to provide goods and services to the government by way of procurement through public bodies, again, I urge all entities who are interested in providing goods and services to statutory authorities, state enterprises, or government departments, take advantage of this opportunity, because this may very well be the last opportunity for them to get a tax clearance or a national insurance clearance and thereby qualify to tender for the provision of goods and services to public bodies. So that's another benefit that is going to flow from this amnesty. Looking at the finance bill itself, the clauses are very straightforward. It touches and concerns 11 pieces of legislation, namely the Income Tax Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, the Corporation Tax Act, the Unemployment Levy Act, the Health Surcharge Act, Petroleum Taxes Act, Tourism Development Act, Miscellaneous Taxes Act, Property Tax Act, and Registration of Clubs Act. despite the absence of explicit amendments to these various acts, the amnesty is applicable to all of these laws pursuant to either the respective incorporation of Section 103A of the Income Tax Act or the Income Tax Act itself. And I may explain 103A. It's an omnibus section that applies across the board to a number of other revenue laws. Turning to the clauses themselves, so Clause 1 is the usual short title. Clause 2 deals with the registration of clubs, and it seeks to waive applicable interest and penalties in respect of outstanding taxes due and owing for the years up to and including the year ending December 31st, 2023, in relation to the Registration of Clubs Act. And I want to emphasize, Madam Speaker, I've had many questions about this amnesty, some of which I found a little surprising because they were coming from accounting professionals, as to what year these taxes, this waiver would be applicable to. It is for all years. Taxes owed for all years up to the year ending December 31st, 2023. So if someone owes taxes for the year of income 2022, the amnesty covers it. 2021, the amnesty covers it. 2020, 2019, 2018, going all the way back. It's for all years up to and including the year of income ending December 31st, 2023. So the second clause deals with the registration of clubs, and it only applies to taxpayers who pay their outstanding taxes and interest prior to October 1st, 2024, or during the prescribed period, that is from October 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. As I indicated previously, if persons do not pay the taxes that they owe, excluding penalties and interest, the penalties and interest will be revived and become payable. Clause 3 deals with national insurance. And similar to the last national insurance amnesty, the proposed amnesty will be applicable to both contributions paid prior to and during the amnesty period. Let me make this clear. Let me repeat this. The amnesty applies to taxpayers who paid their outstanding taxes prior to October 24 and during the amnesty period, October to December 2024. So, in terms of national insurance, all those who pay or have paid their national insurance contributions prior to October of 24 and pay these contributions between October 24 and December 24, they will be relieved of the obligation to pay penalties and interest. Now, the waiver from national insurance is only applicable to employers who are registered with the National Insurance Board prior to October 1st, 2024. Penalties and interest, again, will be revived if they don't pay by December 2024. Clause 4 deals with the Income Tax Act. It repeals and replaces Section 103A of the Income Tax Act and puts into effect a waiver on penalties, interest, and outstanding interest due and payable for the years up to and including the year of income ending December 31st, 2023, once the tax is paid prior to October 1st, 2024, or during the prescribed period of October 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Now, you may wonder why I'm using this form of words, but in a previous amnesty, if persons had paid the taxes prior to the amnesty, the waiver was not applicable. So this waiver now, this amnesty now applies to payment of taxes before, where there was outstanding penalties and interest not paid, and payment of taxes during the period of the amnesty. Again, I want to make it clear that the taxes themselves are not waived. Clause 5 deals with value-added tax. It repeals and replaces Section 54A of the Value-Added Tax Act. It provides again for waiver on penalties, interest, and outstanding interest in exactly the same way as the waiver on income tax. Clause 6 deals with the Stamp Duty Act. Again, repeals and replaces Section 3A of the Stamp Duty Act. it mirrors the previous provisions. It provides for a waiver on penalties, interest, and outstanding interest due and owing under the Stamp Duty Act for all years, including the year up to and ending December 31st, 2023, once the tax was paid before October 1st, 2024, or during the prescribed period of October 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Clause 7 deals with property tax. It gives an amnesty, which I just explained, in effect will extend the waiver for the payment of property tax, waiver of penalties and interest, up to December 31st, 2024. I want to make it crystal clear. I need to repeat this. The amnesty does not remove the liability to pay the taxes themselves. And Clause 8 deals with the commencement, and it establishes October 1st, 2024 as the date on which the bill, and by extension the date upon which the tax and national insurance amnesties become effective. Just to go back to some of the points I made, when the Gambling and Gaming Act is proclaimed, as we indicated, we are targeting December 31st. We hope we can meet that date, but it will certainly be somewhere around there. The Registration of Clubs Act will go out of existence, and there will be no opportunity to waive penalties and interest on taxes that are owed and due and payable by operators of these clubs. I want to repeat that. There will be no opportunity once that law is repealed, when we proclaim the Gambling and Gaming Act, for persons who have been gambling, operating gambling houses in private clubs, to get a waiver of penalties and interest in the future. With respect to small business owners in particular and medium enterprise owners, I want to urge them, take advantage of this amnesty, get your national insurance payments in order, get your income tax payments in order, because if you don't, you will not be able to tender for public goods and services. And I have sought to keep this bill as simple as possible, Madam Speaker. I've sought to keep this debate as simple as possible, Madam Speaker. And with those words, I beg to move.
Honourable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters be now read a second time. Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Finance indicated, this is a relatively short bill, 7 clauses and 9 pages, excluding the explanatory notes. Clause 1, as he said, is just a line identifying that the Act will be cited as the Finance Act 2024. But the six other clauses are extremely important, as together they account for untold millions, hundreds of millions, and maybe even more of money that this government has now taken a conscious decision not to collect. And with the exception of Clause 7, Madam Speaker, represents a tremendous loss to the Treasury and to tax-paying citizens of this country in favor of persons and companies who have deliberately chosen to break the law. The Minister of Finance, in his presentation, again cautioned entities of the need to take advantage of, again, this last opportunity. This was reflective of the same comments that the Honourable Minister has made on several previous occasions when there are tax amnesties, in which he said, this is your last occasion, this is your last occasion, this is your last occasion, ad nauseum. Again, he's here back today to talk about another last opportunity. But, Madam Speaker, before I go into the meat of the debate, Madam Speaker, I want to treat with one of the issues that the Minister, in his docile manner today in his presentation of this bill, chose to pass into the public domain as if somehow this activity, this waiver that he's presenting to the public, that he's presenting to the Parliament seeking parliamentary approval for, is somehow to the benefit of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The minister in his statement says, and I quote, "This amnesty is a source of revenue." So according to the Minister of Finance, the amnesty that he is now providing, these waivers of taxes, is a source of revenue. Madam Speaker, that is playing fast with foolishness, because the source of revenue is taxation. And when the minister comes now and waives the penalties, waives the interest on the taxation and on the penalties, Madam Speaker, what he is doing is reducing what is due to taxpayers. He is deliberately taking a decision to reduce due revenue from the taxpayers by facilitating tax breakers. Amnesty, Madam Speaker, is not a source of revenue. It is a source of net loss to taxpaying citizens of this country. But it reflects the government's policy. It reflects the government's policy of not persecuting wrongdoers, Madam Speaker, but giving them a bly. Madam Speaker, this bill, the finance bill as we have it before us, is defined as a money bill, as reflected on the certificate. The definition of a money bill is found in section 66 of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, which says, in sections 66(1), in sections 63, 64, and 65, money bill means a public bill which, in the opinion of the Speaker, contains only provisions dealing with all or any of the following matters, namely, the imposition, repeal, remission, alteration, or regulation of taxation, the imposition for the payment of debt or other financial purposes of charges on public money or the variation of repeal of such charges, the grant of money to the state or any authority or person or the variation or revocation of any such grant, the appropriation, receipt, custody, investment, issue, or audit of accounts of public money, the raising or guarantee of any loan or the repayment thereof, or the establishment, alteration, administration, or abolition of any sinking fund provided in connection with any such loan, or subordinate matters incidental to any of the matters referred to in this section. Madam Speaker, that places this bill clearly in the realm of a money bill, as it treats with specifically revenues that are supposed to be coming to taxpayers, that are supposed to be coming to the Treasury, that are supposed to be going into the consolidated fund. And therefore, that, Madam Speaker, is the reason why this bill is considered a money bill. Madam Speaker, I will deal with the bill clause by clause. Clause 2. Clause 2 in particular amends the Registration of Clubs Act 2101 to give a bly to private members' clubs and proprietary clubs who have failed to pay their taxes, interest on those taxes, and outstanding penalties for failing to abide by the law. Madam Speaker, who does this benefit? Well, according to the interpretation section of the Registration of Clubs Act at section 1, club means any community or society consisting of not less than 25 members who assemble or meet together in pursuit of a common objective. The Honourable Minister in his presentation referred to the casinos, the gambling establishments, but that is only one type of club, Madam Speaker. It is a much wider net that is affected by this amendment. Members' club in the legislation, the Registration of Clubs Act, members' club means a club not constituted for the acquisition of gain, the members of which contribute to funds out of which the expenses of conducting the clubs are paid and are jointly entitled to all the property and funds of the club. Madam Speaker, this amendment also affects proprietary clubs. Proprietary clubs mean any club other than a members' club. So this exemption, Madam Speaker, this waiver of liabilities as proposed by the Minister of Finance is for the benefit of private members' clubs. And since these are literally owned and operated by the membership by definition, for the benefit of these individuals, Madam Speaker, I wonder how many average citizens are members of private members' clubs and would benefit from this waiver. It is clearly a targeted benefit, Madam Speaker, for a certain few individuals, but it is the taxpaying citizens. It's 1.4 million taxpaying citizens that are being deprived of due revenue that should be going into their benefit, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Clause 3 provides waivers on all penalties and interests due and payable under Section 39B of the National Insurance Act. Again, this benefits employers who have failed to uphold the law, who have been in open breach of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and who will benefit from this waiver, Madam Speaker. Clause 4 introduces a series of waivers by amending the Income Tax Act to facilitate individuals who have failed to pay their income taxes on time, failed to pay the outstanding interest on these taxes, and failed to pay the penalties associated with their overall failure to pay their taxes in accordance with the law. Again, this act, this bill, is to make legal what is in fact an illegal act. That is the failure to abide by the law, Madam Speaker. That is not what our legislation should be doing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what we are in fact doing is penalizing persons who have abided by the law and rewarding those persons who have remained lawless, who have broken the law. Madam Speaker, that is unethical. And what it does, it gives a blie. It gives a blie to persons interested in perpetrating illegal acts in breaking the law, Madam Speaker. But it also sets a bad precedent to those persons who are looking on, to the next generation who are looking on to see how we treat with lawbreakers. We should not be wrapping them on their hands, Madam Speaker, because this is the government's policy, and it reflects the government's policy across the board in treating with lawbreakers. Madam Speaker, Clause 5, like the others, Clause 5, like the other clauses, introduces a series of waivers of certain liabilities to companies which, again, companies which have broken the law and have not paid their value-added tax that is due to taxpaying citizens of this country as required by law. Worse, Madam Speaker, they have not paid the VAT due, nor the penalties, nor the fines, nor the interests on these debts. These are businesses, Madam Speaker, that have robbed the people of this country of due tax revenues and are now being told that it's okay. It's okay, take a blie on the taxpayers' backs and from the pockets of taxpaying citizens, Madam Speaker. Let me explain. When you are, as a customer or a purchaser, when you are purchasing something, Madam Speaker, and you purchase a good or service, you pay your VAT. But those payments are not being remitted to the Treasury by unscrupulous businesses. And these law-breaking businesses are again being favored by this minister and by his government. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister referenced the COVID-19. COVID-19 as a reason for why these things have happened, Madam Speaker. COVID-19. They have gone to blaming COVID. They have gone back to blaming COVID-19 for the failure of the government to implement the taxation that is required, that is on the books to protect the interests of citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, Clause 6. By Clause 6, the Minister seeks to get parliamentary approval to amend the Stamp Duty Act to let persons, including any company, corporation, society, firm, or cooperative or partnership, evade their tax liabilities, Madam Speaker. That's what Clause 6 does. That's what Clause 6 does. But who will benefit from this, Madam Speaker? Who will benefit from this? Persons and businesses who are engaged in a wide field of activities, including land conveyancing, leases, transfers, powers of attorney, mortgages, insurances, stock certificates, etc. Madam Speaker, we have on the opposite side a minister who is very famous for construction-oriented businesses, Madam Speaker. I don't know if he will indicate whether he is benefiting.
Member, that's imputing improper motive. I think you should refrain from going that way, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I query, Madam Speaker, whether or not there are beneficiaries on... Let me phrase that differently, Madam Speaker. I want to ask, Madam Speaker, whether or not, and the Minister in his wind-up could make it very clear, whether or not there are which entities would have written to the minister or approached the minister in seeking this sort of a waiver, and whether the minister or anybody in his knowledge, is personally benefiting from this sort of amendment, Madam Speaker. It's a question to the minister. So in all of these instances, Madam Speaker, businesses engaged in breaking the law. In all of these instances, in the 6 clauses, Madam Speaker, businesses engaged in breaking the law for years are being forgiven for their transgressions and for breach of law by the Minister of Finance and his government. Persons are engaged in illegality, breaking the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and in some cases, the relevant debt recovery sections of the various bodies would have taken substantial time, energy, and resources, spent energy and resources in doing research, in taking measures, hopefully to prosecute and persecute these offenders. The minister just referred to that when he was referencing how hard certain entities were.
Member, the word prosecute and persecute, I have no problem with prosecute. I think you should withdraw the word persecute. They are different words and they mean different things.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I hereby withdraw. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance would have indicated that he was very happy with the processes being utilized by the various individuals and entities in prosecuting and in following up the debts. So they would have spent a substantial amount of time, resources, and effort, these various entities and staffing involved in these entities, to try to recover the monies owed, only to find out now that they have wasted their time. Only to find out now that they have wasted their time, spent good taxpayers' dollars, Madam Speaker, wasted their time because the government has now come to say, take a blight, folks, take a blight. And Madam Speaker, what has been the value of this forgiveness? What is the value? The dollar value, Madam Speaker? Because there's a dollar value in it. This has cost taxpayers not just the opportunity cost where all of these resources would have been spent prosecuting and pursuing offenders of the law. Not just that, where the government then said, don't worry, you wasted your time, Madam Speaker. Now, there's an additional cost because persons and entities are not getting the resources because the government is saying, take a waiver. Madam Speaker, what is the value of this government's free-handedness in forgiving these white-collar criminals, Madam Speaker? How much money are we talking about?
Member, I'd ask you to withdraw that word that you used before, after white collar. Please withdraw that word. Find another word, please.
Thank you very much, Madam, and I hereby withdraw. Madam Speaker, the government has facilitated, deliberately and by policy, offenders who have broken the law of this country. And it has cost taxpayers substantial amount of money, Madam Speaker. The question is how much money? In a sworn affidavit to the court, sworn and filed on June 3, 2024, the Honourable Minister of Finance told the court at paragraph 25, and I quote, Madam Speaker, the annual tax gap, that is to say the difference between actual tax revenues collected by the government and potential tax revenue, is estimated to be in excess of Trinidad and Tobago dollars, 5 billion TT dollars, Madam Speaker, and could be as high as $10 billion. In light, Madam Speaker, and I continue the quotation by the Honourable Member, in light of present oil and gas prices on the international market and the likelihood that they will not increase significantly in the near future, the reduction of the tax gap through increased collection of taxes is likely to be the only way of reducing the budget deficit and achieving fiscal consolidation, while at the same time maintaining present levels of government expenditure. Close quotation. So 2 things there, Madam Speaker. In the first instance, the tax gap is between $5 and $10 billion, according to the Minister of Finance in his submission, between $5 and $10 billion. That's the kind of value we are losing out on, Madam Speaker. But there's another part where the government is saying that it is therefore critical to enforce the legislation to ensure that we don't have this tax gap continuing. And this is $5 to $10 billion on an annual basis, Madam Speaker. The minister himself indicated that there was need to ensure that they close that gap by enforcing the legislation. And then 2 or 3 months down the road, he comes with an amnesty. He comes with an amnesty, forgiving those who have created that tax gap by failing to pay their taxes, Madam Speaker. Mind you, Madam Speaker, in June of this year, this is when the minister spoke, in June this year, after multiple tax amnesties over the last 9 into this is now year 10, multiple tax amnesties have been provided by the very said minister to the very said businesses to try to close this tax gap. And these businesses, these business houses still owe billions of dollars in taxes, Madam Speaker. Despite the fact that the minister himself said it earlier today in his presentation, that this is to cover taxes going all the way back. He went back into 2019, according to the minister, 2018. There was no COVID then. There was no COVID then, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member, I just rise to advise you, you have 2 more minutes left of ordinary speaking time. You're entitled to 15 more minutes to wind up your presentation if you wish.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The minister, Madam Speaker.
You're going to exercise the...
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. So the minister is saying $5 to $10 billion, Madam Speaker, but Nigel Edwards, who is the government's head of the TTRA, stated in a May Guardian report by Radhika Sukraj, and I quote, "There are studies that articulate that there's a tax collection gap as high as $15 billion. And our objective is to close that gap within the first 3 years by increasing tax collection by $10 billion, and that is an achievable objective." This is the gentleman who now has the TTRA. What the minister needs to tell the country today, as he has told the court, is what is the estimated loss that he has come to the parliament today to tell the country that he is going to write off, because that is what this is. It is a write-off of liability, a write-off that benefits the few at the cost of the many. 1.4 million people, 1.4. There's also significant costs given that the projected deficit, according to the Minister of Finance a few weeks ago, will be $5.6 billion. But here you're projecting a $5.6 billion deficit between your revenue and your expenditure in your budget. But you are willing to write off revenue, Madam Speaker. What madness is that? How illogical is that? At a point in time where we should be ensuring we enforce the law so that there's compliance with the law and that the government can retrieve funding, Madam Speaker, where it is due and when it is due, the government turns a blind eye to it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, who is this government working for? Who is this government looking for, Madam Speaker? The country is told that we don't have money to pay proper wages to public servants, support workers, the members of the protective services. We don't have enough money to do that. They don't have money to pay suppliers for medicines in the hospitals or to buy parts of critical equipment so that people don't have to wait months and years for CAT scan and MRI, etc., with others having to wait years for emergency heart surgery. Government tells us that they don't have enough money to repair and fuel Coast Guard vessels. That is why the country's coasts remain open, facilitating free entry and exit to criminals involved in human trafficking, illegal drugs, and importation of illegal firearms, Madam Speaker. They tell you that they have no money, Madam Speaker, to increase old age pensions and social grants, Madam Speaker. So pensioners and those on social support have to choose between eating a meal and paying for medicine or electricity. No money, so that they cut gate, effectively cutting out the educational mobility of thousands out of poverty in this country, Madam Speaker. No money, so the government tells average citizens to tighten your belt. Tighten your belt. But the minister and his colleagues on that side are telling tax evaders, businesses who break the law, to take a bribe. I challenge the Minister of Finance today, Madam Speaker, to tell us who these companies are that are being targeted with this waiver. Tell us how much each of them is owing the taxpayers of this country. Tell us, so that we will be able to see if amongst these companies that are declaring hundreds of millions of dollars in profit are those very same companies that are refusing to pay the taxes. Ironically, in the same Guardian article I just cited, Madam Speaker, the TTRA head told the country that he was not aware of any special drive to go after large corporations. Instead, he adopted, that is the TTRA head, he adopted a more suppliant, pleading approach, calling for more persons to be willing to share the burden, even as he stressed that errant tax owners have had enough, errant tax business and tax owners have had enough time to pay their taxes, Madam Speaker. Having issued a number of amnesties in the past, there is now little excuse for businesses and individuals not to pay their fair share of taxes. But isn't that what the purpose was for issuing the tax liability waivers in the first instance, Madam Speaker? Sadly, Mr. Edwards was not able to specify how many businesses are evading taxes, but noted, ironically, that the TTRA's strategic plan included collaboration to identify errant business owners. After 9.5 years, going into 10 years, they are now seeking to identify errant business owners. Madam Speaker, between the head of the TTRA and the Honorable Minister of Finance, they don't have a clue about what is going on in this country with regards to tax collection. They are whooping with the numbers, Madam Speaker, and while they are whooping with the numbers, and Madam Speaker, this is not accidental. I mean to cast no aspersions, Madam Speaker, but after 10 years, if you are today know that there's a huge tax gap in billions of dollars where taxpayers are being robbed of funding, you have taken no...
To withdraw that word and find another word. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And withdrawn. Madam Speaker, if after 10 years, this government has been unable or unwilling to take the relevant measures, to do the relevant investigations, to find out who the errant taxpayers are, then they are as liable and as guilty for the errors that we have now, Madam Speaker. And bringing tax waivers as a way of lie, as a way of covering it up, Madam Speaker, is only a penalty to tax-paying citizens. This is a direct discrimination against persons and companies who would have abided by the law. There cannot be a law for some, Madam Speaker, and another law for others. This is not Animal Farm, where some are more equal than others, Madam Speaker. This is not Animal Farm. This is Trinidad and Tobago, where our Constitution guarantees us equal treatment under the law. But that does not happen under the PNM, Madam Speaker. These write-offs are a slap in the face to law-abiding citizens and businesses who have dutifully followed the law and made their payments on time. Some perhaps even borrowing or drawing down on their savings to ensure that they stay within the provisions of the law, and only now have to stand by and watch while those colleagues, those businesses that have broken the law get away scot-free without even a slap on their wrist, Madam Speaker. That is completely unacceptable. And no matter how the minister spins it, Madam Speaker, no matter how he treats with it, what it is doing, it is penalizing those who have abided by the law in favor of those who have not. Madam Speaker, there's another piece of this legislation that seems to have snuck into the legislation, Madam Speaker. There's another very interesting matter. You see, according to several of these clauses, Madam Speaker, the minister is seeking the approval of the Parliament to extend the waivers by himself without having to come to the Parliament. The minister is seeking the approval of the Parliament to, well, it's an additional power. It is to give him an additional power. But he wants to seek the Parliament's permission to extend amnesties as and when he sees fit, without having to come to Parliament. Madam Speaker, when you give this minister this power, you are effectively removing the responsibility, requiring the minister to come to Parliament and explain why he wants these extensions and who he wants to facilitate. But it's worse than that, Madam Speaker. In his presentation in the budget, Madam Speaker, in the budget 2025. The minister says, we do not expect to give any further tax amnesties after the TTRA is fully up and running, as we expect much better compliance from all taxpayers once the new arrangements for tax collection are in place. Taxpayers are therefore urged to take advantage of these amnesties, as they may not see them again. So the minister on the one hand is saying, we don't expect any more amnesties. We don't expect any more extensions. So then why? Why is he asking for permission from the parliament? Why is this amendment there, where he will now extend without coming to parliament? If he expects that the law will take place, Madam Speaker, what the minister is doing is creating the very same problem that he claims he's willing to stop. He's cautioning his colleagues, he's cautioning, Madam Speaker, pay up now, because no other chance is going to come. But just in case, I will have the permission to extend the deadlines. Madam Speaker, what does is create an even further weakening of the taxation system of this country. Madam Speaker, since 2020, and I will only go back to 2020 because it's a quick snapshot, Madam Speaker. Since 2020, this government has come, this minister has come from 2020 to today. 48 times there have been amendments to the amnesties, Madam Speaker. Amnesties. 48 times there have been tax waivers, Madam Speaker. 48 times from 2020 to now. Madam Speaker, if that doesn't scare you, nothing should. Because what that does is tells taxpayers not to bother, have confidence, because at some point in time, the government will come and give you a tax waiver so that those persons who are filling, it's a bad example that they're setting, Madam Speaker, especially to those persons who are willing to abide by the law, They're telling them not to abide. Madam Speaker, I want to turn quickly to the amendment to the National Insurance Act. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, this is a waiver of penalties and interest on penalties for companies who did not pay their NIS contributions on time. NIS contributions, Madam Speaker, 2 days ago, Madam Speaker, on a Saturday, in my constituency office, Madam Speaker, I met with an individual who found out 15 years he had worked with this company, Madam Speaker, 15 years, only to go now to claim, to make a claim at the NIB, to find out that the company was not paying their NIS. For 15 years, Madam Speaker, what that does is it puts the taxpayer, it puts a person who should be receiving a benefit in serious cost, at serious liability, and instead of treating with those lawbreakers, the minister is saying, take a blight, go ahead. But Madam Speaker, it's worse than even that. The NIB is in financial crisis. The reason that the NIB is in financial crisis, Madam Speaker, could largely be attributed to the fact that we have they have less contribution income coming in and more benefit expenditure going out. And one of the reasons we have less contribution income coming in is because hundreds of millions of dollars are not being paid to the NIS as it should have been paid, Madam Speaker, to the National Insurance Board. And as history has proven, a lot of those come from the government. It is government's failure. State boards and bodies managed by the People's National Movement ministers, Madam Speaker, on that side, have abandoned the NIB and allowed it to fall into crisis. And now when the Minister of Finance has the opportunity to ensure that businesses stick to the law, they are sacrificing the NIB, Madam Speaker. That is a frightening thing. Today, Madam Speaker, the most recent document from the NIB Annual Report 2023 says that there was a shortfall of $1.3 billion between expenditure, benefit expenditure, and contribution income. If this government had followed up, you can laugh as much as you want to. If the government had only, and this is no laughing matter, if the government had only, Madam Speaker, if the government had only done what it is supposed to do, NIB may very well not have found itself in the crisis that it is in now, where they have to sell off assets. Mind you, this is the very same minister who, are recognizing that there was a crisis, went and asked the NIB to invest billions of dollars into his own fund. But, Madam Speaker, I want to refer you to the, I don't want to use the hypocrisy. That may be unparliamentary. But I want to use, I want to look at the duplicity of comments coming from the other side. I refer to a newspaper article in 2021, 6th of the 10th, 2021. Sorry, 10th of the 6th, 2021. The headline of that newspaper article, and it's a Business Guardian article, Imbert worries about the sustainability of the National Insurance Fund.
Even though you're quoting, you have to comply with what the standing orders are. Okay? So you're in breach because you have to refer to the member either by portfolio or by constituency. So find a way to say, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The honourable member for Diego Martin Northeast, the Minister of Finance, is worried about the sustainability of the National Insurance Fund. The minister said then that the root cause of the fund being depleted is life expectancy in Trinidad and Tobago, much like other countries have increased steadily over the last 50 years while birth rates have decreased. The minister is saying that because people are living longer, the National Insurance Fund is in crisis. Not at all. It is because of the failure of the Minister of Finance to collect the contributions of NIS from businesses that are breaking the law, Madam Speaker. Every year too, Madam Speaker, at the Standing Finance Committee, we have been raising, and this year was no exception, we have been raising, we saw ministers speak about the NIS contributions that they have outstanding. And every year we ask the ministers the same thing. Would this ensure that all your contributions are up to date? And every year the ministers say the same thing. Today, Minister, I challenge you to advise the country how many government agencies are still outstanding, still have monies outstanding for the NIB. How many and how much? But you know, Madam Speaker, I can expect none of that. Madam Speaker, in the last few seconds that I have, Madam Speaker, I want to touch on the Clause 5 and property tax if I have the opportunity. Clause 5 is for the VAT, the value-added tax, where the minister is giving a bly again to businesses that have not paid their value-added tax, Madam Speaker. What is that message? What is that message, Madam Speaker? The message, quite frankly, is that businesses, whether they pay or don't pay, is not important to the minister. Because at some point in time, they will get a release. They will get an ease up, Madam Speaker. Wrong precedent, wrong direction. There should never be a time in this country when a government facilitates wrongdoing.
Member, again, I find that imputed improper motives. Withdraw that. Find another way to say, please.
Withdrawn, Madam Speaker. There should never be a time in this country, Madam Speaker, when breaking the law will result in a benefit to those who have broken the law at the cost and expense of taxpaying citizens. There should never be such a time, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Minister, Clause 7.
Member, your time is now spent.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was wondering who would be against an amnesty. And upon reflection, in my opinion, only a hateful person would be against an amnesty. I'm not speaking about anybody in this house, madam.
While you may not have referred to any particular member, somebody has just spoken, so there's an innuendo. Please withdraw that and find another way to say what you would wish to say, please.
Madam Speaker, I was not speaking about any member of this house.
Minister of Finance, you may understand that, but I've ruled, and I'd ask you to please withdraw, find a way.
Oh, certainly. I was not objecting to the withdrawal, Madam Speaker. I withdraw.
Thank you.
But it is curious that the Honourable Member for Oropouche West spent the last however many minutes ranting and raving about the provision of an amnesty, which I am certain every single UNC supporter is in favor of. Who would be against that? We went through the COVID-19 pandemic. It was real, it was not imaginary. It actually happened. And we had a situation where businesses were locked down. We had a situation where the borders were closed. We had a situation where people could not earn income. And as a result of that real life situation, especially for small, micro, and medium enterprises, people at the, Madam Speaker, I am being continuously interrupted by the member for Separia and the member of St. Augustine. I would ask you, Madam Speaker, exercise your authority and stop them from muttering at me.
Okay, so to all members, all right? I think we've been doing very well so far. So let's try and abide by Standing Order 53. Member for Superior, apparently you're not recognizing me, whatever pull there is with the Minister of Finance today. Please, I like when we, are in a jovial mood and so on, but let's get down to the business and let's abide by Standing Order 53. No continuous talking to all members. If one has to speak in hushed tones, if one really needs to speak long, one is invited to go outside, come back. Minister of Finance, I'm sure it'll be okay now.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wonder how long that will last. So when I piloted this legislation, I indicated that there were a number of amnesties for tax and also for national insurance, previous amnesties, some of which were implemented by members opposite. Was it wrong then? Was it villainous? Was it criminal? Was it supporting the criminal element? I dare say it was not. So how is it that the previous UNC administration implemented both tax and national insurance amnesties, but when they did it, it was not support for white-collar criminals? Nonsense, absolute nonsense. As I indicated, there was a real global pandemic. It was called COVID-19. It started in 2020 and continued. The restrictions, the public health restrictions, continued well into 2021. And it severely affected businesses, especially micro businesses, small businesses, and medium-sized enterprises. Severely. Anybody who was here during the COVID-19 pandemic knows that. And all of them on that side know that. And as I said, there isn't a single supporter of the UNC who is against this particular tax amnesty and these national insurance amnesties. So it is political hypocrisy of the highest. Hypocrisy. And I dare them to vote against it. Vote against it, no? And go and report to your supporters that you voted against a tax amnesty that is designed to help them and designed to help everybody else who is struggling in this country. Go and vote against it. It's just a bluff and an old talk and a torrent of political hypocrisy. There's absolutely no doubt that persons are still at the lowest end of the spectrum, still trying to recover from the hardship imposed upon them by public health restrictions and travel restrictions. And people have to make choices. So when you have a small or micro business, you have to make a choice. Whether you pay salaries, whether you pay rent, whether you pay your suppliers, whether you pay electricity bill, and so on. You have to make a choice. And quite a lot of small, micro, and medium-sized enterprises, regrettably, were unable to fulfill their statutory obligations. This is the truth. This is reality, not the fantasy that I have just heard from the member for Oropouche West. Fantasy. Absolute fantasy. And it is also factual that with the proclamation of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act, a new regime came into being a couple years ago. Factual that now, in order to qualify to tender to provide goods and services to a statutory authority, a state enterprise, a government department, you must get a tax clearance and you must get a national insurance clearance. And therefore, that is an extra obligation that has been imposed, especially on small and micro businesses. And because they had to recover from COVID, they can't get the tax clearance, they can't get the national insurance clearance. And by the way, Madam Speaker, the members opposite also know that when one has a tax liability, quite often the penalties and interest are more than the actual principal tax liability itself. It's very onerous. And quite often you can't collect. The businesses will go out of existence. They will go bankrupt. They will close down. You're not going to get a lot of these penalties and interest. You're not going to get it. So, Madam Speaker, we on this side believe in helping people. We on this side understand small businesses. We on this side understand the pressure people are under. We on this side have an empathy for small people. We empathize with people at the lowest end of the spectrum. And therefore, we are promoting this tax amnesty and this national insurance amnesty. And I dare every one of them on that side to vote against it. I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is that a bill entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters be now read a second time. All in favour say aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters.
Minister of Finance.
No, that was the Minister of Finance.
All right, so 1
there.
minute. I am having difficulty.
He's the Minister of Finance.
I am having difficulty in hearing, so to follow the proceedings. So I'm asking members to please control their volumes. Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. In accordance with Standing Order 68.1, I beg to move that the Finance Bill 2024 be committed to the Committee of the Whole to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honourable members, the question is that the Finance Bill 2024 be committed to the Committee of the Whole to be considered clause by clause. All in favour say aye. Any against? The ayes have it. This House will now go into the Committee of the Whole to consider the bill clause by clause. This bill has 8 clauses. The question is that clauses 1 to 8 stand part of the bill. The question is, Member for Cypriot.
Is for the Honourable Minister to kindly reconsider the power that he's giving unto himself to at any future point by order extend the deadline dates. So this will stay on the books, and that means at any point in time for the next ad nauseum, ministers of finance will have that power to extend deadlines for all these various pieces of legislation. Can we ask that you reconsider that for all 8 clauses? It's at the end of the clause, each clause, all 7 clauses, sorry.
This only applies to this particular amnesty. The power to extend is only applicable to this particular amnesty.
This particular what, sir?
The power to extend the time for the waiver of penalties and interest is applicable only to this particular amnesty, not to future amnesties.
What in it restricts or limits it in that regard?
Because the period is prescribed. It ends December 31st, 2024.
Minister, I've seen with other amnesties in the past, I have a list of them here,
Yes.
where there have been repeated extension of deadlines. We can take the first one here, Clause 3.
Yes, that's a fact. But it's an extension of the deadline for that specific amnesty for that specific prescribed period. To follow on what the question you're asking, because I think I understand what you're driving at. A Minister of Finance 3 years from now cannot extend this period of time for this particular amnesty for this prescribed period. Once the extension comes to an end, that's it.
So then why are you including a power under the Minister of Finance to, by order, extend?
Because, as always happens with all amnesties, within the last week or two, you always get an avalanche of requests for an extension because we are a last-minute society. Let's face facts. Every single amnesty so far has required an extension. Some have been extended for a week, some for a month, some for 2 months, and so on. When your government was in power, your Minister of Finance, in fact, extended the amnesty for several months. But it is only that particular amnesty. You always want to give yourself the flexibility when people come at you and say they were not able to put together the necessary documentation to pay their taxes, to consider whether you want to give an extension or not. It's simply to give the minister the flexibility.
I am not convinced, Honourable Minister, but I thank you. Can you consider an alternative to put the power of the Parliament either by affirmative or negative resolution for the order?
Well,
You're extending the order, you will do it by order.
The practice
and you put
for
a check and balance
I hear
for
you.
parliamentary approval.
The practice for the last 20 years has been to give the minister the power to extend. Now, in terms of these types of instruments, it all depends on the degree of difficulty and the degree of complexity. This is not something that you want to have a debate every time you want to extend an amnesty by a week or two. It is not something that should consume the Parliament's time. It's standard practice. For example, by way of example, the amnesty or the waiver of the penalties for the filing of annual returns. That again is by ministerial order. This is standard. You don't want to come and convene the Parliament simply to have a 2-week extension of an amnesty. And furthermore, this has to go to both houses of Parliament. So if I were to agree with what you were saying, by the time I finish in the other place, the extension period might be ended.
Well, this period will soon come to an end. I'm not convinced, but you have the majority.
No
so
problem.
Proceed.
Good.
The question is that clauses 1 to 8 now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Clauses 1 to 8 now stand part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be now reported to the House. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. This committee meeting is now adjourned. The House shall resume. The Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wish to report that the Finance Bill 2024 was considered in Committee of the Whole and approved without amendments. I now beg to move that the House agree with the committee's report.
Honourable members, the question is that this House agree with the committee's report on the Finance Bill 2024. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. The Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters be now read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is that a bill entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters be now read a third time and passed. All in favor say aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Make Provisions of a Financial Nature and Other Related Matters. Motions.
The Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move motion number 1, standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Madam Speaker,
If I may, we had an agreement, if I understand it, that we would deal with all the motions at the same time. Yeah.
Respond. According to the procedure, the minister is going to move the motion of that nature. Yes. Yes, that's exactly what that is what he's You're most welcome.
Oh, Minister, may I guide you to page 5 of the updated procedure with respect to the motion?
okay. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move motion number 1, standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, in moving this motion, I seek the leave of the House in accordance with Standing Order 51 to debate along with this matter motion numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the order paper, which relates to the same subject.
Is this the wish of the House?
Yes. Speaker, I just want to seek clarification. So is the government not debating motion number 1? Because I got the impression we're debating all 5 motions.
I just said alongside I just said alongside.
Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, my friends are not listening. The minister said, I beg to move motion number 1, standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, in moving this motion, I seek the leave of the House in accordance with Standing Order 51 to debate along with motion number 1, motions 2, 3, 4, and 5. He said it. But you wanted to make sure you weren't listening. No, he didn't.
Honorable members, leave has been granted for motions 1 to 5 on the order paper to be debated interrelated. Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, whereas Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, there hereinafter called the Act, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission. And whereas Section 122(4) of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. And whereas the President has issued a notification in respect of Dr. Wendell C. Wallace for appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has, on the 12th day of November 2024, issued a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the President and for the nomination of Dr. Wendell C. Wallace as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Madam Speaker, I begin by thanking the outgoing Commission for its tremendous national service, for its work. In particular, I thank the chairman of that commission, Madam Justice of Appeal Judith Jones, who demonstrated along the way total dedication to the responsibility that she would have undertaken along with other members of the commission as it then was. It has been my observation that the former chairman and members took the time to understand the police organization, its role, its responsibility, and what it was designed to achieve in accordance with the law and the Constitution in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Justice of Appeal Jones did not merely serve, but prepared an exit report, quite normal, but dealing with several matters of critical importance. And the difference on this occasion was that she took the opportunity to express her own concerns and that of the Commission as chairman. I also take the opportunity, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to thank the nominees before us for our consideration today for accepting the invitation by Her Excellency on behalf of all of us to serve, and for allowing themselves to be presented to us in the House of Representatives as nominees. There are 5 such nominees, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 2 possessed of the discipline of law, 2 possessed of the discipline of management, and 1 the discipline of sociology, bearing in mind that these are the disciplines that the Constitution or the Act provided for and anticipates from members of the Police Service Commission, given that which is in front of them. 1 of the 5 before us today served on the last commission and is before us, of course, for consideration on the new commission going forward. For the benefit of the public, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and more poignantly for the benefit of members of this House, it is my intention to highlight some of the aspects of the profiles, the CVs of the nominees before us here today. Of course, beginning with Dr. Wendell C. Wallace. Dr. Wallace is deeply affiliated with the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, and now holds the post of senior lecturer. He would have achieved a BA in History and Human Resource Management from the said University of the West Indies at the St. Augustine campus in 2002, an MSc in Criminology and Criminal Justice with distinction, again from the University of the West Indies in 2006. In 2006, he earned himself the qualification of Bachelor of Laws. In 2009, a certificate in Alternative Dispute Resolution. In 2013, a certificate in Caribbean Defense and Security from the National Defense University, Washington, D.C. Dr. Wallace was called to the bar of England and Wales, the Honourable Society of Gray's Inn, London, in 2013. He obtained a certificate in governance, governability, and security in the Americas from the National Defense University, Washington, D.C., and that was acquired in 2014. Dr. Wallace was then called to the bar of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and admitted to practice thereby in 2014. It is in 2014 as well that he achieved his Doctor of Philosophy status in Criminology and Criminal Justice, again from the University of the West Indies. And since then, in 2016, he would have acquired a certificate in mediation, the trainer certificate, and a certificate in practical mediation skills, both from the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine. As I indicated, at present, Dr. Wallace is a senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies. He's a visiting professor and lectures in policing, innovation, enterprise. He's a visiting professor at the Police Innovation Enterprise Learning Center at the University of East London. He has been in that position since 2022, and it is expected to continue up until 2025. I did indicate that Dr. Wallace, by way of experience, is a well-qualified mediator and certified so with the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Wallace served as a human resource manager, and of course, interestingly, he was a police officer between the years 1989 and 2008 in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Dr. Wallace has a list of publications to be proud about. Several chapters written in distinguished publications. For example, he would have written under the heading, Why, When, Where, and How, Introduction to the Palgrave Handbook of Caribbean Criminology, as well as in he wrote The State of Criminology in the Anglophone Caribbean, and many other such writings. Dr. Wallace has a very long and impressive CV, so I will venture just another few aspects of it, where he would have written, Creating a Safety Plan for Victims of Domestic Violence in the Caribbean. Then again, wrote on the movement of Venezuelans to the Americas and the Caribbean in the 21st century. Policing the Global South, Colonial Legacies, Pluralities, Partnerships, and Reform, yet another of them. Policing Technology in the Caribbean, yet another. And the long list of his research and writings proudly continues at least 6 or 7 pages deep. Madam Speaker, the Act provides that one be schooled in the discipline of law, and from the record that I have read here, brief as it would have been, Dr. Wallace is suitably qualified for the position as nominated by Her Excellency as a member of the Police Service Commission. Madam Speaker, I proceed therefore to the second nominee, Ms. Anika Fritz Brown, who is qualified and experienced as well in the discipline of law. Ms. Brown, Fritz Brown, would have earned her Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of the West Indies with honors, the Cave Hill campus. She would have acquired the Legal Education Certificate from the Hugh Wooden Law School at St. Augustine. She would have gone on to a postgraduate diploma in mediation studies, again from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. As well, Ms. Fritz Brown is a certified mediator in civil and non-family matters, and so certified by the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago. She is possessed of international certification in legislative drafting from the Tulane Law School, Tulane University, New Orleans, the United States of America. A diploma in treaty and legislative drafting. She has acquired as well a Master of Science degree, Planning and Development with distinction from the University of the West Indies. And of course, a Master of Laws degree, Legislative Drafting from the University of the West Indies. And we are advised, and it is here recorded, that Madam Fritz Brown is a PhD candidate out of the treating with international and treaty law from the Euclid University. Mr. Deputy Speaker, insofar as professional experience is concerned, Ms. Fritz Brown has tremendous drafting experience, legislative drafting that is, and would have served the state in this regard. She also has experience as a practitioner in the field of law. She was the head of the department and a senior legal officer in this very parliament between the years 2012 and 2013. Madam Fritz Brown is a full-time law school, or was a full-time law school lecturer with the Council of Legal Education at the Hugh Wooden Law School between 2013 and 2019. And between 2013 and 2016 was a part-time UE lecturer in the Department of Geomatics, Engineering, and Land Information. Mr. Deputy Speaker, those are just a few highlights of the very impressive resume as offered by Ms. Anika Fritz Brown in her nomination for membership of the Police Service Commission before us today. I now move, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the nominee, Ms. S.L. Hector Berkeley, a person who is qualified and experienced in the discipline of management, to be appointed as a member of the Police Service Commission. S.L. Hector Berkeley would have, in 1987, acquired a certificate in industrial relations from the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. In 1994, acquired a Bachelor of Science degree in management from the Rutgers School of Management, New Jersey in the USA. And of course, going on in 1997 to have acquired a master's degree in public administration from the said Rutgers University. Insofar as working experience is concerned, between 2007 and 2013, Madam Hector Berkeley was administrator with the Tobago House of Assembly, no doubt gathering tremendous public service experience thereat. In 2014, Madam Hector Berkeley was a member of a two-person government-appointed team tasked to provide expert guidance and to make recommendations to address human management situation in a particular government ministry, and presented a comprehensive report in terms. And between 2015 and 2016, served as a consultant in the Office of the Chief Personnel Officer in the Personnel Department. Again, for those reasons and surely more, a nominee for the consideration of this House. I move...
Please, just 1 second. Members, please remember the decorum of the House. All cell phones on silent or, again, switched off. Please. Proceed, member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I move to the other nominee, Mr. Roger Baburam, a person who is qualified and experienced in the discipline of management, and before us for our consideration in this House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Baburam would have served as Regional Director of the People's Business Partner from January 2019 to the present time, a trusted people advisor to over 1,500 employees located in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Miami. His resume suggests that he led the development and implementation of a comprehensive talent acquisition strategy for the B2B sector, resulting in a 30% increase in quality hires and a number of other achievements in that capacity. Between 2017 and 2018, June 2017 to December 2018, served with Cable and Wireless Communications, their subsidiary of Liberty Latin America, as Director People of the Southern Cluster. Between 2016, March of 2016 and May 2017, served as Director Shared Services with Barbados Light and Power, the Barbados Light and Power Company. And of course, a senior HR executive responsible for the formulation and implementation of strategy and oversight for human resources. He served as Human Resource Manager from June 2012 to 2016. Skilled in the business of human resource management, and before us today as a nominee for the consideration of this House. The final nominee, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani, a person who is qualified and experienced. Madam Speaker, I'm being disturbed. Deputy Speaker, I'm being disturbed by the member for Couva South.
Please, that's a lot of members on their legs, so proceed. I'll protect you.
Repeat. Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani, a person who is qualified and experienced in the discipline of sociology, to be appointed as a member of the Police Service Commission. Mr. Ramdani would have served on the last commission and is now before us for further consideration in the upcoming commission. Mr. Ramdani Between 1993 and 1996, acquired a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology and Management Studies with a double major, earned second-class honors from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. And between the years 1996 and 1999, acquired a Master of Science degree in Sociology, specializing in criminology, white-collar crimes, and non-banking financial institutions, again from the University of the West Indies. And the record in front of me demonstrates the earning of very, very high grades in those programs. From 2021 to the current time as we speak, Mr. Ramdani is a testing administrator with PSI International. Again, as well, a testing administrator for ParlView International. And between October and November 2026, served as an assessor in training at the National Training Agency, Ministry of Education here in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Ramdani, from April of 2018 to the present, is the academic head of the Caribbean Institute for Security and Public Safety. Served as principal of that agency or that institution from April 2013 to March 2018. He served as a research associate with Professor Ramesh Deosaran in 2007, and between February 2007 and April of that year, he was a tutor in criminology in the Department of Behavioral Sciences at the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies. He was a junior research fellow at the Center for Criminology and Criminal Justice in the Faculty of Social Sciences as well. And of course, at some point, was a part-time lecturer in criminology in the Department of Behavioral Sciences at the Faculty of Social Sciences. Mr. Ramdani has membership. Well, he served, as I indicated earlier, in the last Police Service Commission, which had its birth in November of 2021, and he served as one of the members of that commission up until, of course, the 15th of November 2024. And of course, he was a researcher to the very important cabinet-appointed committee to conduct a manpower audit into the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, a document that I would have had the opportunity to study myself and to look at on several occasions in the course of my own work. And I can easily consider that Mr. Ramdani, in that capacity as researcher to that committee, would have garnered a tremendous amount of knowledge about the innards and the operations of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And for those reasons, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I consider that he is adequately suited for continued membership, and therefore his nomination is as well before this House for our consideration. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have highlighted some from the profiles, from the CVs of the nominees, only snippets of their tremendous achievements, but most of all, demonstrating that as the law requires, they are schooled in the business of law, the business of management, and certainly the business of sociology. And I offer these nominees for the consideration of this House. I beg to move.
Honourable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Dr. Wendell C. Wallace as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. I recognize the member for My apologies, members. Honourable members, you are reminded that leave has been granted for the motions numbers 1 to 5 to be debated together. I will now recognize the member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this afternoon, I rise to speak on the motions before us, piloted by the member for Laventille West. Motions in the name of the Prime Minister, but not for the first time, not piloted by the Prime Minister, but indeed by the Minister of National Security. Motions on our order paper number 1, 2, 3, 4, and indeed 5. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at a time like this, when this country experiences unparalleled, unsurpassed level of criminal activity, with a murder rate which we lose count every 3 hours or so. It was, I believe, 567 a few hours ago. And counting, it could be more by the time the debate is finished. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at a time like this, the appointment to officers in the Police Service Commission becomes extremely critical and of paramount importance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the government has raised 5 motions and are in the House today asking for approval for 5 citizens, qualified as they may be, for appointment to the Police Service Commission. Mr. Deputy Speaker, may I make the point again, which we always do when we debate these matters, that the members of the opposition, the leader of the opposition, and her members on this side of the House, we have absolutely nothing personal against any of the 5 and all of the 5 members, citizens before us today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in fact, a few of those persons, some of us, including myself, are not even familiar with personally. We do not know these persons. We have never had any interaction with those persons, most, if not all of us. But having said that, we have been asked to debate this matter before us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the first point I wish to raise is a matter that involves process and timeliness and due diligence. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is a matter of record that this process will involve consultation with the parliamentary opposition and the leader of the opposition on behalf of members on this side of the House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wanted to put on record that Her Excellency the President indeed would have communicated with the leader of the opposition on this matter pursuant to her constitutional responsibility. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I get into the individuals before us, I wanted to note that the leader of the opposition, in her correspondence, which is outlined and is now a matter of public record, did indicate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that notwithstanding that the outgoing members of the Police Service Commission, ceased to exist, their term of office would come to an end on November 15th, which has gone, it is, I believe, last Friday. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was only the 30th of October 2024, when the Leader of the Opposition received correspondence from the Office of Her Excellency, the President, speaking to these appointments and asking for the appropriate consultation. And the 6th of November. So it was the 30th of October 2024 and the 6th of November, which is really 6 to 15. We are dealing with 9 days or so before the term expired of the former members. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a letter dated the 30th of October, another dated the 6th of November, informing the Leader of the Opposition of these persons for appointment. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition replied quickly by the 12th of November 2024. The Leader of the Opposition replied to the President, indicating this strained timeline and placing on the record, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that it was not possible, and it cannot be possible in all circumstances, for the Office of the Leader of the Opposition to undertake the due diligence necessary. And I just want to read into the record the words of the Leader of the Opposition. In responding, the 12th November 2024, Her Excellency Christine C. Kangulu, ORTT, President of the Republic, Your Excellency, Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, I write in response to your letter of November 6th, indicating that the term of office of all members of the Police Service Commission expires on November 15th, and your proposed nomination, in this case one, but there were several letters giving nominations of other persons, for a period of 3 years. I am constrained to note with concern the short notice given to me of these proposed appointees and its potential impact on the proper and timely conduct of the necessary due diligence. Mr. Deputy Speaker, from the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Senior Council Member of Parliament. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the former members expired, their term of office expired November 15. You would have known that 3 years ago. You would have known that expiration date. You come on the 6th of November, 30th October, 6th of November, to propose on the eve of the expiration of their term new potential members for appointment. And you would give 9 days, including weekends and so on, for the opposition to conduct due diligence on persons so that we can come to Parliament and properly debate and properly advise on these appointees, potential appointees. That, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to put on record is ill-advised, it is tardy, it is really, it's strange in a sense that it would come so late in the day, as if they do not want us to conduct the proper due diligence on the appointees. So that you can come and you can bring names and quickly appoint without due diligence, without proper inspection, without proper investigation, and persons will be appointed. This is unheard of. 3 years ago, you knew it. Yes. Hey, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's a Jindal dimension to these proposals, that you would come like a thief in the night and propose persons, give us 6 days as the case may be, put a debate. This debate was initially carded for last Friday, the 15th, and we would come with our eyes closed, and we would say yes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it won't happen. It won't happen. It won't happen at all. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I place on record
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I raise Standing Order 48-7, please.
All right, so again, Honourable Member, according to the standing order, again, we need to be conscious of bringing the office of the President into the debate, right? I think you would have made your preamble already, and I believe you are now going to go into your discourse, so we'll end it there, right? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I move on.
Proceed.
The matter now I want to move to is these matters involving the particular names of persons. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the name really that, yes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, in considering these matters, is now on record as expressing objection to not one, but 3 persons before us for appointments. The first one, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition and members of this opposition would like to express our objection to the appointment of one Dr. Wendell C. Wallace as a member of the Commission for a period of 3 years. And I want to ask, as we do when we debate matters like this, is it the intention of the government to surreptitiously place Dr. Wallace as chairman of the Police Service Commission? Is Dr. Wendell Wallace known to the leader of the government, to members in the cabinet? If so, in what capacity? You see, by letter dated 12 November 2024, the Leader of the Opposition indicated that in the limited time we have been able to peruse the curriculum vitae of Dr. Wallace and made the observation that Dr. Wallace appears to hold suitable qualifications and experience, of course, in criminology, and the minister from Laventille West went through the CV and so on. And I'm always eager to look at CVs because earlier in my academic life, I actually did some type of study on constructing CVs. And one technique is to read from the last, come to the front. And when you see people who on the last page of the CV, they indicate that they were in interviews on CNC3, TV6, IETV, Tancoo News, and so on, you also raise some suspicion. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Dr. Wallace appears to have qualifications and experience in the field of criminology and so on. But the opposition leader noted with concern Dr. Wallace's public comments, opinions on crime and matters of criminology in Trinidad and Tobago as published in various newspaper articles over the past 4 years. And the links were, of course, given to the Excellency. And the Leader of the Opposition noted that the Leader of the Opposition confirmed that we have reviewed the contents of these articles and determined that while Dr. Wallace might be speaking in his professional capacity on matters involving crime and laying blame and so on, we have copies of those newspaper articles, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Guardian criminologist, TNT on Path to Historic Murder Toll 2024. It was the 23rd of August 2024. We have the next article, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Criminologists, mass shootings here to stay in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, it is not reassuring that the next chairman of the Police Service Commission would be telling the country that mass shootings are here to stay. 9th of May 2024. These are recent articles, and this is the Trinidad Guardian again. So we have both the 23rd of August 2024 and the 9th of May 2024, where this analyst of some sort is telling the country mass shooting is here to stay. Now, this is a very serious matter. And the Leader of the Opposition indicated in her submission to the President that these articles and reading and studying these articles suggest that given the factual matrix of these articles as it relates to the analysts, it is whether or not we highlight this. It was highlighted and it was seen as due diligence. We asked the President to reconsider this proposed appointment in light of those facts as a matter of urgency in the best interests of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. While these may be the views and personal views of the criminologist, Dr. Wallace, one wonders whether Dr. Wallace is going into a position where his mind is already made up on certain issues relating to the nature of crime in this society. And when you have to adjudicate, and we'll get to that, the role of the Police Service Commission in supervising monitoring, disciplining those executive officers under the purview of the Police Service Commission, whether this person is already tainted by his public expression of views on the nature of crime and the incidence of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, and what can be done and what cannot be done. Suppose he is interviewing a candidate for police commissioner, and the police commissioner candidate says, mass shooting can be dealt with, it is not here to stay. What happens now? He already has a view expressed. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, those are matters we raised. But there's also another, well, another troubling matter which I wish to raise. You see, and I want to be so careful because I had raised a matter in the public before, and I had this matter of, thank you, of names. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the curriculum vitae speaks of Dr. Wendell C. Wallace. Dr. Wendell C. Wallace. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have in my hand the Trinidad and Tobago Gazette, extraordinary, number 119, Caroni, Trinidad, Wednesday, 11th August 2021. Price $1. Mr. Deputy Speaker, on paragraph 754, appointment of a member to the Elections and Boundaries Commission. I read this and then I ask my question. It is hereby notified for general information that Her Excellency the President, in exercise of the power vested in her by Section 71(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, has appointed Dr. Wendell Wallace as a member of the Elections and Boundaries Commission for a period of 5 years with effect from 5th August 2021. This appointment ends 5th August 2026, after a general election, which is due. That's important. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is this Wendell C. Wallace, Doctor, of the Police Service Commission, the same as Wendell Wallace, Doctor, on the Election and Boundaries Commission? This has, assuming that to be so, there are serious implications of that. And first is that on the CV that we received from Her Excellency, unless I'm mistaken, we had a small team working on this, there was no mention on the CV of disappointment. Why? Now, why, if it is the same Wendell Wallace, why, I mean, that is a prestigious appointment, I imagine. Why on the CV there's no mention that the person is a member of the Elections and Boundaries Commission? Are there two Dr. Wendell Wallace operating on the compound? This is very serious. I'll come to the implications just now, but I first want to ask, are there two Dr. Wendell Wallace in Trinidad and Tobago? And one carries a middle name C. I'm not sure what the C for, and I don't want to guess. One carries a middle name C, but the one on the EBC has no C. There's an EBC report signed by Dr. Wendell C. Wallace. I put it to you, it is the same person. Why is it that on the CV sent to the Leader of the Opposition, with this quick, November 6 to 15 deadline coming up, there's no mention of that? Why? Was that the objective? And Mr. Deputy Speaker, let's get to a few of those implications I spoke about. The Elections and Boundaries Commission is meant to be insulated, to be independent, to be neutral, to be apart from other institutions of the state, conduct elections, the sanctity of elections, the pillar of your democracy, and the men and women who participate in that ought not to be in other arms of the state.
you ought not to hear the EBC commissioner is also at the WASA, the TNTEC, the Police Service Commission, the Civil Service Commission, and so on, because there are serious issues of conflict. So I can give you the examples now. You have a gentleman who would be on the Police Service Commission, could be chairman. And then he is participating in the appointment of a commissioner and deputy commissioner of police. You have the conduct of an election, to which he now is a central architect of the conduct of general elections, local elections, where there may be matters involving allegations of electoral fraud, electoral irregularities against the EBC, not against anybody, against the EBC. It has happened before when the conduct of the EBC, their decision making, has gone to the courts, and the courts ruled that they were wrong. They acted illegally. But what happens when you have allegations against the EBC for the conduct of elections in a marginal seat? The police is asked to investigate, and the same person appointed by the EBC commissioner is the same person as the police service. The same person appointed by the police service commissioner is the same person they're investigating and making report to in the EBC. So you appoint the hierarchy of the police service that will then investigate election irregularity and fraud that you are also entrusted with to prevent as a commissioner of the Election and Boundaries Commission. You'll see what has happened here. This is, use a bad word, incestuous. I mean, it is. The merit list might be taken from him. This is bad news. I mean, I don't want to say any more bad words, but bad news. You cannot have this. And that is just one clear and potent example of this apparent conflict, apparent prejudice. The EBC works on election day and during the election season with several arms of the state and the conduct. It could be schools. The education ministry will support the EBC and so on with all their logistics and so on. The education sector, the security sector and so on is critical in the conduct of elections. And you have a gentleman who is already in the Election and Boundaries Commission, and he's been proposed as chairman of the Police Service Commission. This is unheard of. And why did the government, first to begin, why the government did not point out that in their debate? Because they know. They know. The government is aware it is the same gentleman on the Election and Boundaries Commission. Why did they fail to tell us in the Parliament and tell the House and disclose to the House today? That by itself could be a breach of the Parliament, you know. Could take them to the Privileges Committee, you know, for failure to do that, to mislead the House on a critical matter like this. Now, there are other serious implications. There are other serious implications of that appointment. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I really have to move on. Full time. Yeah. I have to move on to some other matters. But that EBC matter is a very, very important matter, and it is not something that the government could take lightly and sweep under the carpet, because that constitutes serious conflict between persons who will be on a police service commission and then on an election boundaries commission in charge of the conduct of general elections. So that is a matter, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that I would leave there. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we also considered in the opposition the appointment of one Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani. Mr. Deputy Speaker, again, I make the point, we have nothing personal against anyone, including Mr. Ramdani. In fact, many of us have never met the gentleman in life. But it is not the first time we are raising the issue on this person, since he is, I believe, the only person to be given this positive appraisal and invited to continue on the Police Service Commission, Mr. Ramdani. On the last occasion, I want to indicate that we did raise serious concerns, and on this occasion, by letter dated 12 November 2024, the Leader of the Opposition indicated in a note of concern the following information, that Mr. Ramdani is currently employed as an academic head.
Member, and that letter is to whom?
To Her Excellency the President, dated 12 November 2024.
Now again, I need you to tread very carefully, right, in terms of things. So I'll give you the opportunity to just make a general statement and then we'll take it from there.
I'm speaking on the words of the Leader of the Opposition,
Right.
not the
No
President.
problem. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
And on record, yes, it's a matter on public record. In this letter, the Leader of the Opposition states, and I quote, "In the conduct of our due diligence, I note with concern the following information. Mr. Ramdani currently is employed as academic head at the Caribbean Institute for Security and Public Safety, a company owned by Amalgamated Security Services. The annual return of the Caribbean Institute of Security and Public Safety, submitted to the company's registry on the 11th of August 2021, stated the shareholders of this company as several citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. John Aboud, Mr. Michael Aboud, directors Brian Ramsey, Maurice Aboud, James Filbert, former Commissioner of Police, and others. The point here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that it is well known, it's a matter of really public knowledge, that this particular private sector company conducts significant business with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. That is a matter that is well known. And it is a matter that has been so for some time. Absolutely, we are not casting any aspersions on the conduct of the company or the gentleman. What we are indicating is that when you put a representative on the Police Service Commission that is working with and for an entity that does significant business with the police service, and that person is in charge of assessing, of appointing, of recruiting, of disciplining the hierarchy of the police service, it leads to a clear allegation of conflict, of prejudice, of bias. Since, again, it could be that, looking at it from the outside, that persons will be prone to select, to appoint, to recruit individuals to position that may well favor a particular business or another. Now, if this person was associated with another company completely outside the security sector, we'd have no difficulty with that. None. But today, we must raise this, and the Leader of the Opposition raised this matter as a matter in which the Leader indicated that we therefore object to this proposed amendment. Mr. Deputy Speaker, a further objection to Mr. Ramdani's involvement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we also object to this proposed nominee, once more because he was a sitting member of the Police Service Commission for the past 3 years, under which several matters regarding the questionable conduct of the Police Commissioner and other Deputy Commissioners would have arisen. It means, therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he was one of the members who oversaw the appointments of these Deputy Commissioners in question. Most notoriously, the DCP, Deputy Commissioner of Police, who was responsible for breaking the law in the now infamous Brent Thomas fiasco.
And again, member, that's the same letter or that's a different letter?
No, this is my notes, my private notes.
Oh, that's your private notes?
No, it has nothing to do with the President.
Oh, okay. All right, let me be sure.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to quote from an Express article published March 20th, 2024, headline, Suzette Martin, new Deputy Commissioner of Police after House votes. And I quote, Orapooch MP Dr. Roodal Moonilal also expressed concern over the fact that Ms. Martin has been charged last year with dangerous driving as a result of a vehicular accident involving a 14-year-old boy on April 18, 2023 along the Priority Bus route. Ms. Martin was charged in October by ACP Wayne Meister, who I believe is now an Assistant Commissioner of Police. She has since appeared before the court via summons, pleaded not guilty, and has been granted bail. He also raised several issues involving the TTPS and its operations. One such matter was the arrest of in Barbados of businessman Brent Thomas, who was brought back to Trinidad in 2022. Madam Speaker, I'm quoting now from the member for Orapoochis. I quote an Express article published July 25, 2024, headline, Police acted wrong in making arrests. And in another article, the state has accepted, in another article, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Trinidad Express this time, the state has accepted that members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service acted unlawfully when they went to Barbados in October 2022 and arrested firearms dealer Brent Thomas before bringing him back to this country. Making the concession...
Member, please. Again, tie it in quickly with regards to the member that you're referring to in terms of what you're saying, please. Yeah.
Speaker, I make this quick tie, that this person, Mr. Ramdani, was on the last Police Service Commission for 3 years. Fact one. Fact two, they appointed, through a process of whatever, they appointed a Deputy Commissioner of Police. That Deputy Commissioner of Police was named, tagged in several matters involving an accident on the priority bus route for which he had been charged, and also in a matter involving the unlawful detention, arrest, kidnapping of Mr. Brent Thomas. That particular commissioner who is before us again, having been part of a police service commission that made those appointments, and therefore he's not fit to return. I think that could make it clear. That makes it clear. That, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, by letter of 12th November 20, a lot of letters went by on the 12th of November 2024, made another objection to one Mr. Roger Baburam, another nominee before us today, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And in this matter, the Leader of the Opposition stated that Mr. Baburam appears to hold suitable management qualifications and experience to assume and undertake the requisite roles and responsibility, etc. However, pursuant to our conducting the requisite due diligence and research on this proposed candidate...
Your initial speaking time has elapsed. You have an additional 15. You care to avail?
Thank you.
Right, proceed.
So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, pursuant to our conducting the requisite due diligence, the words of the Leader of the Opposition, and research on this proposed candidate, I note with concern the following information unearthed. And this matter involves, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was sent to Her Excellency. I'm not quoting from Her Excellency, I'm quoting from the Leader of the Opposition. A particular case that was before, I believe, the Industrial Court involving Mr. Baburam. And in those matters, Mr. Baburam gave evidence, and there were some issues regarding that in the matter before the court. We have reviewed the contents of this matter and determined that Mr. Baburam, while he may have been acting as a senior human resource analyst with the company in that legal matter, the subject matter and factual matrix of those articles and articles relating to a particular industrial relations matter, the Oilfield Workers Trade Union...
Again, member, in terms of sub judice, that matter has been closed off?
The matter has been determined.
Okay.
It's not a matter before the court. Live matter. Oilfield Workers Trade Union versus Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. So by the time we say Petroleum Company, we know it's long gone. Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. We confirm that those matters and the factual matrix and the accusations made in the court in that matter raised concern concerning Mr. Baburam as well. Therefore, in the judgment, there were concerns raised in terms of the conduct and the testimony and evidence from Mr. Baburam. And in those circumstances, the Leader of the Opposition suggested to Her Excellency that you kindly reconsider this proposed appointment in light of those facts as a matter of urgency. This is Mr. Baburam. So we are placing on record our objection to Mr. Baburam, our objection to the member of the Election and Boundaries Commission, when Dr. Wendell Wallace, our objection to Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani, and therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we place on record, which in fairness we must, our non-objection to the appointment of Ms. Anika Fitzgerald as a member of the Commission, notwithstanding the limited, extremely limited time to conduct due diligence. It was felt by the Leader of the Opposition and the Opposition that Ms. Anika Fitzgerald is qualified, and without having any further information on her, it was not our view that we should object, and therefore a letter of non-objection was also sent to Her Excellency, the President. Mr. Deputy Speaker, The final person, I believe, on our nomination list is one, yes, Ms. Anika Fritz Brown, is it? Yes. Ms. Anika Fritz Brown, a principal attorney with 19 years of experience in public and private law practice, skilled in legislative draft and policy development. The minister alerted us to these qualifications. And again, with the limited time available and capacity in that time to undertake a due diligence exercise, we can find no objection, and the leader of the opposition has so expressed non-objection by letters to the Excellency. Yes. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's also no objection to Ms. Ethel Hector Berkeley, who is also qualified. And again, in the limited time, one could not undertake exhaustive, investigations and vetting and so on of candidates, but there are no grounds to object to her appointment, and the leader of the opposition has therefore expressed non-objection to the appointment of Ms. Ethel Hector Berkeley, who we will be happy to support. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are just two matters remaining that I would just raise, and one concerns a very critical and related annual report of the Police Service Commission. And this report was laid just a few days ago in this House. And in that report, because we are now speaking to persons and to the national community, persons who may well be appointed, given their majority, to be members of the Police Service Commission. And the former chairman of the Police Service Commission made some very serious observations in the report of the Police Service Commission Annual Report 2023. Retired Justice Judith Jones, in fact. She urged a reform in the PSC, Police Service Commission Annual Report laid in the House on November 15th. Justice Judith Jones used the chairman's remarks to lament the limitations and inconsistencies of the Police Service Commission's powers in its role of oversight of the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners of Police. These are issues that have been in the public domain and newspaper reports. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Justice Jones also shared data suggesting a low public confidence in the police in various areas of performance. It is unbelievable in this country today, where 82% of persons surveyed by the Police Service Commission in 2023, professional survey, 82% felt threatened and scared of criminal activity. Now, the big question is, where is that next 18% or so? That might be PNM ministers with their bodyguards and special branch and so on, and have all their bodyguards and so on. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm being disturbed, of course.
Members, please.
Yes.
Let's maintain the decorum, members. Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is also noteworthy is that 72% of the population expressed no trust in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And this falls squarely at the feet of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. You cannot blame the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service alone. It is the Prime Minister who often beat his chest as chairman of the National Security Council. He has made that an executive office, Very interesting. That's a cabinet subcommittee. He has made almost an executive office. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, boasting about National Security Council, the Minister of National Security will come time and time again and speak about, the National Security Council. It is government policy and programs that must be implemented to build public trust in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And we commit ourselves, the leader of the opposition commits us that on returning to power in a very few weeks and months, we will take steps, introduce programs and policy to rebuild faith and confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Today, the population has no faith, no trust in the police service. Other law enforcement agencies, but we are dealing with police, absolutely none. And this has to be the responsibility of the government and the Ministry of National Security that spend billions of dollars. And today they cannot work with the TTPS. They have appointed a second minister from Port of Spain South. His claim to fame so far.
Member, again. be careful on the road that you want to go down now coming to the end of your debate. Again, keep it with regards to the PSC and the nominations. And again, yes, I would have given you some leeway with regards to, including, but please, tread carefully, please.
Let's get back to this Police Service Commission urgently. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what struck me in this report, and this is a Police Service Commission report I have in my hand here, not a report from anybody else, not the member for Siparia's report. This is the Police Service Commission. You know what the Police Service Commission outgoing chairman says here? Lamenting the lack of resources, the lack of equipment, the lack of funding to the Police Service Commission, a critical commission like this. The former chairman is saying the existing organization, I'm at page 5, 6, 7, 8, page 8. The existing organizational chart shown below, and there's a chart, represents the structure of the commission established pursuant to cabinet decision. At the same time, cabinet agreed to undertake a review of the operations and staffing of the secretariat after 1 year's working experience. A review was eventually done in 2015. A review was done in 2015. Could not have been by them. Despite the ongoing efforts of the Director of Personnel Administration, almost 10 years later, the Commission is still awaiting action on proposals for restructuring. Imagine a review on the organizational chart that identifies the important functions of appointing a senior human resource advisor, secretarial support, 2 state councils, and so on. They have that in their structure. They have, for example, the recruitment and selection of monitoring and evaluation staff, evaluation units, and so on. After saying all of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the outgoing chairman says, review was conducted in 2015. 10 years later, the Commission is awaiting action and proposals for restructuring. And this is the crisis we face. So we cannot just blame the outgoing chairman, retired Justice Judith Jones. We cannot just blame her alone, or we cannot just blame her at all. But we must indicate and look at her words. This suggests that the Police Service Commission in 10 years has received absolutely no support from the incumbent government that beat their chest about the National Security Council and how much boat they buy and how much plane and how much all kind of things, Mr. Deputy Speaker. How much ladders they bought for the fire service. Mr. Deputy Speaker, and the report indicates, of course, that the build-up to this crisis. The report also indicates, Mr. Deputy Speaker, at several points, the former chairman calling for a review, at least a review of the existing legal framework to ensure that the Police Service Commission has greater legal authority in terms of appointing not just the deputy commissioners of police, but the assistant commissioners of police, because they are saying that the law is so structured that there's an inbuilt favor towards police officers, and therefore the pool for deputy commissioner of police and commissioner, it comes from lower ranks, and they should also have some authority, supervisory authority over the lower ranks as well. That was a key takeaway from her statement as well. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think it would augur well for us to be reminded of her statement. It is unlikely that the members opposite, I call them the opposition in waiting, the opposition in waiting, it is unlikely that they will do anything and they will change anything. If in 10 years you couldn't do it, in 10 weeks you will not do it. So, calling on this government...
Just about under 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. So calling on this government to operate this way is really foolhardy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also wanted in this 2 minutes to just indicate that notwithstanding our concern with the former commission, we did take note due to an important freedom of information request by one Ms. Samantha Singh Pune in a letter received from the Service Commission Department concerning the Police Service Commission. Ms. Samantha Singh Pune, an attorney at law at Saddam Hussein and Company, attorneys at law in Kunupia, received information. They asked, in a nutshell, they asked on the conduct of a performance appraisal for the Commissioner of Police. I thought it was interesting to put on record that this commission indicated that they had how much page? a 1.5-page assessment of the Commissioner of Police, Erla Christopher, and said Miss Christopher did a good job. And that was the beginning and end of what was supposed to be a serious undertaking, assessment, performance appraisal, looking at key performance indicators, etc., for a commissioner of police, for an extension, when you should be checking everything from minor crime to major crime. You had a 1.5-page submission from a Freedom of Information request stating, in response to Ms. Samantha Singh Poona, stating that the current commissioner did a good job. But you cannot explain what a good job it is. I'm hoping that the incoming Police Service Commission would take matters much more seriously. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, a former member of this House, the member, as he then was for San Fernando East, a former Prime Minister, one day stood in this House and it resonated in my spirit when he said, if members of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago hold no respect for politicians in this country, it had to be the fault of our own. That's what he said. And I saw a perfect demonstration of that here today, representing the United National Congress, representing the opposition, coming from the member for Oropuch East. This is why the public has trouble. The member was speaking about trust and confidence in the police service. I am ashamed to tell him that the same exists in respect of some of us as politicians, based on our conduct when we held office in this country. Let me say, we have been extremely careful as a government, always in the history of the PNM, particularly in the last 10 years, to do whatever we could to protect the integrity of our institutions and citizens who reside outside of this House when their names come in this House for consideration. A very, very important thing, as pointed out to us by the member for Dago Martin West, the Prime Minister. Because we are all too aware that there are many people in Trinidad and Tobago who are willing to serve, who have the capacity and the wherewithal to serve this country. But the conduct of some members of this House discourages them, because the first opportunity they malign people's names quite unjustifiably. And we lose, he was talking about the pool for commissioner, we lose a pool of Trinidadians and Tobagonians who could contribute to the well-being of this country because of conduct as we saw here today. Madam Speaker, yes, the term for the members expired on November the 15th. Yes, 5 persons are nominated by Her Excellency to be here today. Let me repeat that, by Her Excellency. So when the member for Oropuch East began to talk about timelines and accuse the government, I simply want to say, without bringing the very distinguished President and Office of the President into things, that this was not conducted by the Cabinet. This is all a matter from the Office of the President. That's it. And it is disingenuous to say anything. And I'm sure I'm sure that the President and the communications can explain all that would have happened and why. I have no business further with that. The opposition leader is on record, according to the member of Oropuch East, of protesting, suggesting to Her Excellency that they had objection, the opposition leader, with 3 of the nominees who were in front of us today. I consider that to be typical sourness and complaining, because when I listen, I withdraw that. But the speaker seemed to have
No. Don't bring the speaker into debate. The speaker stood. And I think you saw the errant ways and you pulled it back. So, having withdrawn it, Let's continue. Leave the speaker out of this.
All right. Okay. Okay, Madam Speaker. Okay, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, the spirit of a killjoy, let me put it like that. The opposition leader took objection. Yeah, damp squid, a wet blanket on a cold night in London. Madam Speaker, the opposition leader has taken objection through the lips of the member for Oropuchis, according to what he told us, to Dr. Wendell Wallace, wondering whether he is known to the government and all of that. This is a small population, which we all know, of 1.4 people. I sat in this house. I debated in the house with the member, Gillian, what seat she held? St. Joseph? Was it? Point-a-Pierre, sorry. Point-a-Pierre. Yes, that was Point-a-Pierre. And that member left this house with a record of acting on integrity. Because there was a teacup scandal, and the member had knowledge of it and dealt with it accordingly, demonstrating a whole lot about the member for Siparia and what became popular in this country about politics having a morality of its own. But, Madam Speaker,
Mr. National Security, I'm really lost, but I think you're turning a curve. I think you're turning a curve and coming back to the matter at issue, please.
The point, Madam Speaker, is that at the end of the day, what is required and what some of us have practiced is the quality, the element of integrity. We will know each other. I have friends who are judges. We all do. But the question of integrity is what keeps the fences up and protects the institutions and the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago. But some people feel because they don't know anything about integrity, everybody else don't. Madam Speaker, the member for Oropuchis presented the fact of Dr. Wallace's membership on the EBC as though someone tried to hide it and it was a secret. Madam Speaker, in the letter dated the 6th of November 2024, which Her Excellency sent to both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader so that they could have carried out their constitutional responsibility, mention was made in that letter of the fact that Dr. Wallace was a member of the EBC. When you hear them today, the members of the unwitting public will believe somebody tried to hide it. It wasn't the letter. They come here today and presented it as though it was a secret and something wrong with it. Disingenuous, to say the least. And the member for Oropuch East, told us today in his presentation that all we had, and they do have it, is a copy of the CV of Dr. Wallace and the other nominees. And in that CV, at page 13, under the rubric Statement of Professional Service, there are listed thereat 17 items. Item number 3, Statement of Professional Service. It says, Commissioner, Elections and Boundaries Commission of Trinidad and Tobago.
Privilege committee-wide. Privileges.
August the 5th, 2021.
Shameful.
To August the 4th, 2026. We demand an apology in the name of Dr. Wallace. And we condemn the malignment of an innocent and clean and upright citizen who has offered himself in service of this country. That is what the UNC does. They are a threat to Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. Dishonest, despicable. I withdraw those words.
Those two words.
UNC. Madam Speaker, and just for conceptual accuracy, let me go a little further. In this constitutional democracy, which we inherited from the British many, many, many years ago, the philosophers who shaped this philosophy, we recognize the separation of powers, the parliament, the judiciary, and the executive. The EBC and the Police Service Commission, quite apart from the fact that our Constitution provides for their independence and insulate their operations from the executive per se, those two organizations do not fall under the ambit of the Parliament. Those two organizations do not fall under the ambit of the judiciary. And logically, therefore, in a sense, they fall within the executive arm of the state. And therefore, if a person is a member of both the EBC and the Police Service Commission, there is no breach, no threat to the separation of powers. None. There is no legal issue, there is no constitutional issue.
There's a moral issue.
And in terms of the moral issue, that's why I made the submission earlier. It is integrity that does the business. So we could play, as we did in this parliament, a cricket game against the judiciary, a win-ball cricket game. We all had a great day of fun some time ago, but they do what they a hardball. It was a hardball game, yes, indeed, I recall. They do what they do, and we do what we do. Madam Speaker, in terms of the other comments about Mr. Ramdani and his having some dealings with some company that might do business with the police, yes. The president was brought into this today and accused of...
The presiding officer at the time ruled against that. So I would guide all members. That has already been dealt with. Let's not go down that route. Okay?
I agree.
It's been withdrawn. It was ruled as overruled. It wasn't withdrawn, but it was the objection was upheld, and therefore we're not putting anything else on the record about that. And I guide all members with respect to Standing Order 48-7. Yes?
I just want to say it wasn't expunged. It still caught my eye. But I agree with you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to read from the very report that the member for Oropuch East read from. This is the report of the Police Service, the annual report of the Police Service Commission 2023, the so-called exit report by Madam Justice Jones and Madam Justice of Appeal Jones and her team. I just want to read two little excerpts, if you would permit me, in terms of this business and how it can be a problem for all of us. Let me read at page 5 in the chairman's remarks, Roman 5, and I quote, before, I think it is important, right, yes, and only fair, yes, I think it is important and only fair to the outgoing members to treat with a very public misconception. The Police Service Commission is not a crime-fighting body. The duties and responsibilities for fighting crime vest in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service under the leadership of the Police Commissioner of Police. To blame the Commission for the state of crime in the country is to take the easy way out and to hide our collective heads in the sand. It is indicative of a refusal to full frontally face and recognize each of our individual responsibilities in the battle against crime. And one further excerpt I just would like to quote with your leave, Madam Speaker. Contrary to popular belief, the Commission does not have the power to monitor the operations of the police service as a whole. The monitoring function given the Commission by the Constitution is limited to monitoring the efficiency and effectiveness of the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioners of Police in the discharge of their functions. This is a small but an important difference. See, when it comes to operations, about who they buy from and who they so on, the Police Service Commission has nothing to do with that. Yeah? Nothing to do with that. So the fears that they have tried to conjure up in the minds of the unwitting public, that because Mr. Ramdani might have some business and attachment to some firm that may do business with the police service, and because he is acting as part of the Police Service Commission for the appointment of commissioner and deputies is a problem, it is very disingenuous, to say the least. That is conduct expected of the UNC, nothing made normal by them. And finally, not for the first time, I heard the member for Oropouche try to malign the name of a Deputy Commissioner of Police in this country, Deputy Commissioner Suzette Martin. He went on at length about it and made mention again about some traffic matter where she is alleged to have driven over the foot or the toe of some boy. That matter is in the court. One, it is in the court as we speak. Two, the matter is yet to be determined, but it seems as though the member for Oropouche has already decided it. But more than that, the member for Oropouche East is a member of this House, entitled to sit and to speak and to debate here. The member wants to be a minister of government again. Desperately. But the member for Oropouche, while he points out a little traffic matter yet to be decided, didn't tell us in the same breath that he is before the court for conspiracy to defraud the taxpayers.
Madam
And
Deputy
it's the
Speaker,
DCP.
Madam, I can't hear myself. Madam Speaker, I can't hear myself with all that noise. Madam Speaker, 48-2, 48-6, oh, the whole of 48. The member knows, Madam Speaker, that there's no criminal matters and so on. He knows that. There's some PNM case or something he's referring to. But
just... Oh, okay, so you're standing on 48-2?
48-6, 48-6.
48-2?
No, 48-2, because he's referring to a matter, I believe, that is in court, that he placed in court.
Just 1 minute.
So, Madam Speaker, please.
Just 1 minute. I would like to hear. Could you just tell me the standing orders that you're going to stand on?
Yes, let me read it here. 48-2, 48-6, 48-4 as well. Offensive and insulting language.
All right.
(49) as well. So, Madam Speaker, I say 48-2, 48-4, 48-6, and I leave it to you.
Okay. So I will take 48-2 and 48 and 49 together, and I overrule the objection. The what? 48-4, I overrule 48-4. 48-6, I overrule 48-6. And if there's any other 48 that you didn't mention, is there any other 48 you would like to mention?
48-1 as well, and you can overrule that too.
and I overrule 48-1. Minister of National Security.
I never bounce down any dog. That's it.
I wish I get to bounce down one now.
One minute, please. I'm happy we're in a very light mood, but I want us to be careful. When we get in a light mood, we tend to cross the line. Minister of National Security, even though I've overruled 48-2 and 9, I just want you to be careful as you go forward. You haven't crossed the line as yet, but I want you to be careful as you go forward. Okay? Yes.
Madam Speaker, I never crossed the line. But I noticed that when the member for Oropouche was gasping for breath, the member for Separia was asleep, paid no attention to him. Silcott nor senior counsel didn't matter. Madam Speaker, all I was saying, and I thank you for your protection, all I was saying is that if for the reasons stated by the member for Oropouche East, DCP Martin should not be there, by the same logic, the member for Oropouche East should not be here. And it just, Madam Speaker, as I approach my close, I remember a calypso. Now, the Police Service Commission is to administer the affairs as the Constitution allows it for the police service in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I just remember a calypsonian who had a song, and one of the lines in the chorus is, "The jail is waiting." Yeah? Yes. So, Madam Speaker, I, on behalf of the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago who we represent, and all else who don't have a voice to be here with the privilege of being in this chamber and taking part in this debate on this motion, we propose the nominees as offered by Her Excellency. We are confident, based on the submissions from Her Excellency and our own perusal of the profiles, the background, and our general knowledge of those who have been offered to serve, particularly in the case of Mr. Ramdani, who have served for the last 3 years, we are confident that they are suitably qualified and deserving of the opportunity to serve Trinidad and Tobago in the way that we present. We thank them again for their service, recognizing that to do so in Trinidad and Tobago today with my friends on the other side is risky business. And we saw demonstrations of it here today. To the extent that they might have felt offended, I, Fitzgerald Hinds, as an individual and member of Parliament, wish on behalf of the UNC to apologize to them. And Madam Speaker, with those things said, I thank you profusely for the opportunity, and I do beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Dr. Wendell C. Wallace as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? No. The ayes have it. Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, sorry about that, Madam Speaker. Yeah, that's all right, that's all right. Madam Speaker, Beatrice, sorry. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion, standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Do I have to read all of them? All of them? Right. Whereas, Madam Speaker, in light of the fact, right, yes. Whereas Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission. And whereas Section 124 of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House. And whereas the President has issued a notification in respect of Ms. Anika Fritz Brown for the appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has on the 12th day of November 2024 issued a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Ms. Anika Fritz Brown as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Ms. Anika Fritz Brown as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Minister of National Security.
Thank you yet again, Madam Speaker. Whereas Section 120... Madam Speaker.
Page 10.
Madam Speaker. No. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Whereas Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission. And whereas Section 122(4) of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for the appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. And whereas the President has issued a notification in respect of Ms. S.L. Hector Berkeley for appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has, on the 12th day of November 2024, issued a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Ms. S.L. Hector Berkeley as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Ms. Ethel Hector Berkeley as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Whereas Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, hereinafter called the Act, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission. And whereas Section 122(4) of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. And whereas the President has issued a notification in respect of Mr. Roger Baburam for appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has on the 12th day of November 2024 issued a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Mr. Roger Baburam as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Mr. Roger Baburam as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favour say aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of National Security.
Thank you yet again. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in the name of the Prime Minister. Whereas Section 122(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, hereinafter called the Act, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission, and whereas Section 122(4) of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. And whereas the President has issued a notification in respect of Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani for appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has on the 12th day of November 2024 issued a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the President for the nomination of Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? No. The ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to Friday, the 22nd day of November 2024. Madam Speaker, on that day is Private Members' Day, and we would be grateful to know what we will be debating.
Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The opposition will be doing on Private Members' Day on Friday, motion number 1 by the member for Princestown.
Thank you. Honourable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. All in favour say aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned to Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 1:30 at This House now stands adjourned to Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 1:30 p.m.